to announce that last week, a couple of weeks ago, we announced our DC Teacher of the Year. I joined Mayor Bowser at Cardozo Education Campus, the home to Vice President O'Leary, to announce that Beth Barkley is our 2024 Teacher of the Year. One of my greatest joys truly is the opportunity to lift up and honor our great teachers and surprise them in really exciting ways. I wish I could call out all of our educators, but Beth Barkley was chosen for a reason. Beth teaches English as well as human rights and social action, and she does that all at Cardozo's International Academy. In this capacity, she focuses on sharing love, guidance, and her skills on supporting the unique needs of newcomer students. It's been just a joy to spend time with her, learn more about her practice, and I hope you all take time to celebrate this huge professional milestone for her, but the amplification of just really great teaching across our district. While each of our students have their unique stories, Beth does an amazing job of inspiring and really helping our students navigate pathways. Part of those stories are rooted in the hope and the belief that America is and can continue to be a land of opportunity. While I continue to be, maddened by the problems I see daily, it's important to really recognize the privileges that we have and to not take them for granted. And Beth does such an exceptional job of navigating this journey with her students. Part of the reason that she is so exceptional in her service to children is she acknowledges that many of their journeys are rooted in trauma. They are arriving in new places and spaces, and she does an exceptional job of helping them navigate their education. Beth is a fierce advocate for increased mental health supports for her students. I know that her love and her passion for her students is all grounded in meeting their needs. She has a true students first focus. In her application, she wrote that her students are the real teachers of the year. And then at her award ceremony, she doubled down on her commitment to her students by committing that the entire $7,500 prize would be utilized to support her students' needs. As a result of her passion for her students, and well as her knowledge as an educator, her students are continuously outperforming with respect to student growth and all of their expectations. Beth also sits on OSSI's Teacher Advisory Council, where her insights help me and our agency do our jobs even better. For these reasons and more, I'm truly pleased that the State Board is honoring Beth Barkley for her exceptional dedication to her students with a ceremonial resolution this evening. I'm also looking forward to your panel discussion on financial literacy this evening. As the State Board knows, OSSI began work on developing financial literacy standards this summer. We conducted focus groups with students and teachers and released a public feedback survey. The results of this public engagement informed our work as we developed our initial draft standards. A part of the drafting and the development process, OSSI also engaged local and national literacy experts to review the initial draft standards and provide feedback. I'm excited to see Dr. Curtis Kidd. Can you help me with your last name? Telemuck? Thank you so much, sir. The director of the Center for Financial Excellence and adjunct professor at Howard University School of Business is here as a panelist tonight. Thank you so much, sir. We are truly delighted, as you were one of the expert reviewers who met with our team and provided feedback on the draft standards. I do want to publicly thank you for your service and your guidance to these standards. And also, please know that your insights were truly helpful as we get to the milestone we find ourselves at today. We also received meaningful, actionable feedback from two of your colleagues at Howard University, Dr. Cheryl Evans and Dr. Denise Streeter. I hope that you can pass along our thanks as well. The State Board asked if we would be able to publicly release our draft standards ahead of today's public meeting. They were due on this Friday. And in the spirit of positive collaboration, the team and I worked feverishly this weekend to expedite our internal review and move the public release date forward. I am very pleased that we were able to release our draft standards into your hands and into our public for comment today. As with our social studies standards, which were approved this spring, we are genuinely seeking feedback to improve these draft standards. At OSSI, we take public engagement seriously, and our track record on social studies demonstrates this. Public comment on the financial literacy standards will close on January 10th, 2024. So please provide your comments to OSSI before the close of this window. And again, truly thank you and your colleagues at Howard University for such tremendous support. And thank you all board members for allowing us to go in this process. It's always a joy to deliver you all standards early. Speaking of public engagement, I'm pleased to share an update on our joint engagement on the DC report card. The State Board and OSSI have been working together to hold joint public meetings on updating the content and format of the DC school report card. The report card is an online platform for families and community members to learn about school level performance. Since I last addressed the board and public in this venue, the State Board and OSSI have co-hosted 2 public engagement sessions. On October 30th, we discussed what content should be included on the report card. And on Monday, we discussed how to best display schools' accountability scores. I do want to thank everyone who has taken and will continue to take time to join us and provide feedback. In fact, I both heard and saw Monday's conversation. It was so rich that we were not able to conclude the discussion within our 1-hour time block. I have stepped back with OSSI's team and our state board leadership, and am pleased to let everyone know that we will be setting up a series of office hours so that individuals who want to continue to give us feedback on the display of accountability scores will have an opportunity to schedule time with OSSI and state board members to have that feedback session so that we can continue to hear voices and make sure that this process continues to move forward. I do want to remind everyone that we have a public survey available that asks about the same topics that we're covering, and the survey will continue to be open through November, and we truly want to engage in this feedback. We will hold our final joint public engagement session on the DC State Report Card on December 4th. It will be a virtual session where we will be seeking feedback on the report card's overall display. It's very important to us. You get to spend time looking at different models and how we can visualize data. So please join us. I do want to name that in feedback from this week's session, the December 4th session will be for 90 minutes. And if we need to have additional time for feedback in terms of office hours, we will avail ourselves. So please come out, give us your feedback. The visual features or tools that families are seeking to help them better understand schools' data or how to compare schools, we truly want to hear the best ways that we should display our feedback so that these tools can be used in and throughout our communities. As previously stated, we do take this feedback seriously. I do want to thank everyone who gave us feedback on Monday's session, and I do want to thank members of the board who were readily available for time and feedback and conversation so that we could all be aligned on a path forward. I'm confident that our state board partners would feel the same in saying that the feedback is truly important as we're trying to design new ways to share information throughout our school and our communities. And just thank you for your partnership in this work. Finally, I do want to thank the State Board's Student Advisory Committee for hosting us on Monday. As the Teacher of the Year, Beth Barkley, alluded to, we do in fact learn a lot when we spend time with our students and we listen to them. We met with students to ensure that they were aware of the district's immunization requirements, which were reaffirmed by council legislation last Tuesday, and to receive feedback on how to best share information about immunizations and the district's requirements with DC students and their families. Students were incredibly curious, and they brought forward some really helpful ideas. I do want to thank the Student Advisory Committee members and encourage all students and families to ensure that you and your friends are up to date on your required immunizations so that you are protected from vaccine preventable diseases and we can remain in school without any unnecessary absences. Again, thank you so much for your time. And President Thompson, you were coming in when I was thanking the whole board, but thank you for your continued collaboration as we are navigating many twists and turns. We are getting great work done together, and so thank you for letting me be here this evening.
Thank you, and of course, you are welcome to all of our public meetings. That has not changed. Uh, so, good evening. My name is Ebony Rose Thompson, and I'm the Ward 7 representative on the State Board of Education. I also have the pleasure of serving as the president of the board. I do want to thank Superintendent Grant and our members for all the work that has happened this month around the report card and our continued engagement and collaboration. On behalf of the DC State Board of Education members, I do want to thank our guests and the viewing public as we welcome you to our public meeting. The State Board plans to continue to hold this in-person posture for our public meetings. The State Board holds its regularly scheduled public meetings on the third Wednesday of every month at the Old Council Chambers. We are located at 441 4th Street, Northwest, Washington, D.C. And this meeting is being broadcast live via the District Knowledge Network. I'm pleased to share several updates from the past month. First, the State Board held its meetings with Deputy Mayor Kai and Chairman Mendelson. We also co-hosted a teacher appreciation event at Drew Elementary in Ward 7 with Ariel Atkins of the Washington Mystics and the Lids Foundation. I want to thank Ariel, her team, and the Lids Foundation for their partnership on this amazing surprise event for the teachers. State Board members and staff also attended the annual conference of the National Association of State Boards of Education, which was a wonderful opportunity for us to connect with other board colleagues from across the country. I also want to just take a moment to applaud our representative, Taya Washington, who gave an excellent presentation at the NASB conference on the topic of emotional wellness in adolescence. Finally, as you have heard, we have co-hosted two public engagement sessions with OSSI for the DC School Report Card. Members of the public are invited to participate virtually in our third and final joint engagement event on December 4th at 6 p.m. This evening, the board will hear from 22 public witnesses. We look forward to hearing from you. We encourage the public to sign up every month to share testimony. As a reminder, sign-up closes 48 hours before the public meeting, and the link can be found at www.sboe.dc.gov. The next public meeting of the State Board will be held on December 13th, which is 1 week earlier than usual due to the holidays. I would note that our office next week will also be not as accessible as we usually are due to leave and our small but mighty staff needing a break. So if you call the office and you don't get the quick response you normally get, that is why. It's not because we're not paying attention to you, but because we want to be able to do that on a consistent basis. So I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I want to again thank OSSI for their partnership. And we are going to transition to a panel on financial literacy. Tonight's panelists, will share their perspectives about best practices in high school financial literacy education. Their testimony will inform the State Board's review of the draft financial literacy standards. We are excited to hear from Khadija Kemp, math teacher at Ballou Stay Opportunity Academy with DCPS, Dr. Curtis Kidd Telemuk, Director, HPS Center for Financial Excellence, Lead Faculty, Global Trilateral MBA Program, Adjunct Faculty, Executive MBA Program, and Management Department at Howard University School of Business, Tonica Tatum Gormez, math teacher, Capital City Public Charter School. I ask that those witnesses please come to the table now. Each of you will have up to 5 minutes, and then we will move to one round of questions from the State Board. We will begin with Ms. Kemp. Note, we do have one microphone. So you will have to pass the microphone, and please speak directly into the microphone. Even if you can hear yourself, DCTV may not hear you as well. And we want to make sure that the viewing public hears you clearly. So I believe we're starting with Ms. Kemp, and you can start when you're ready.
Okay, good evening. Can you hear me? Good evening, members of the DC State Board of Education. My name is Khadija Kemp, and I've been teaching for over 23 years with over 7 years in DC public schools. I first started teaching financial literacy with an Everfi course in my computer applications class at McKinley Middle School. I currently teach students ranging from the ages of 17 to 22 advanced algebra with financial applications at Balustay High School. I was recently able to attend the Jumpstart National Educator Conference for the first time, and I was able to connect with financial literacy teachers and organizations from across the U.S. to share best practices, strategies, and resources. I highly recommend the National Standards for Personal Financial Education to be used as a foundation for your standards because it identifies knowledge, skills, and decision-making abilities that students should acquire during their K-12 education. These standards also provide a framework for a complete personal finance curriculum that progresses through elementary, middle, and high school to prepare students for their lives as smart consumers. I'm here today to share my experience as a teacher and to explain to the DC State Board of Education why financial literacy is essential as you develop the standards for this significant topic. An annual survey developed by the TIAA Institute and the Global Financial Literacy Excellence Center called the PFIN Index is based on a response to 28 questions across 8 functional areas: earning, consuming, saving, investing, borrowing, managing debt, ensuring, comprehending risk, and go-to information sources. Financial literacy tends to be low across generations, particularly among Gen Z, followed by Gen Y, who could correctly answer only up to 7 of the 28 index questions. Financial literacy is lowest among Gen Z in 7 of the 8 functional areas. Comprehending risk is the one area where functional knowledge is essentially equal across generations, but at very low levels. Those with a very low level are more than 4 times as likely to have difficulty making ends meet in a typical month, nearly 3 times as likely to be debt constrained, 3 times more likely to be financially fragile, more than 4 times as likely to lack emergency savings sufficient to cover 1 month of living expenses, and more than 3 times as likely to spend 10 hours or more per week on issues and problems related to personal finance. This study shows that greater financial literacy generally translates into greater financial well-being, and lower financial literacy is generally associated with lower financial well-being. The overarching goal of financial literacy is to educate individuals on how to earn, spend, save, borrow, and protect their money. When you are financially literate, you have the foundation to make sound financial decisions and the ability to accomplish various life goals such as saving for education or retirement, taking vacations, making major purchases, using debt responsibly, and/or running a business. I believe financial literacy should be integrated into the curriculum at all grade levels, but most importantly should be a required high school graduation course. My students would often ask me, when will I ever apply this algebra to my everyday life? In the advanced algebra course, it makes algebra relevant and applicable to real-life concepts and skills. All DC students should be able to learn independent living skills, such as how to read and understand their paychecks and create and manage a household budget. They should learn about consumer credit so they understand various banking concepts, how credit cards and student loans work, and how to manage and pay off debt. They should also learn about taxes and how to file them, automobile and home ownership, modeling a business, various types of insurance, investments, planning for retirement, and other financial novelties such as e-wallets, digital money, buy now, pay later, P2P lending, and other new financial products. Financial literacy will help them avoid high levels of debt, loan defaults, bankruptcy, and foreclosures, prepare them to have emergency funds, reach long-term goals, and provide the capability and confidence to make major life decisions. Only 23 states require students to take a standalone personal finance course to graduate. Maryland requires financial literacy standards to be implemented by districts, and Virginia requires students to take a financial literacy course for high school graduation. The financial literacy standards will assist with closing the achievement gap and provide an opportunity for all DC students to be prepared to succeed in school and life. This is also a great opportunity to partner with various financial institutions, credit unions, fintech providers, and local businesses to provide finance-related learning opportunities, teacher professional development training, as well as field trips. Thank you.
Members of the DC State Board of Education, my name is Tonika Tatum Gorms, and I am a 12th grade financial literacy teacher at Capital City Public Charter School. I'm here today to talk about my experience as a financial literacy teacher in DC in the hope that it will guide the State Board of Education as you develop standards for this important and necessary topic. Financial literacy education is important to high schoolers because it allows students to become adults who make beneficial and informed financial decisions, especially in DC where the majority of the students are from households that are low income. These students need to become the generation that will break the cycle of poverty and financial illiteracy. There is a lot on the line for our students, particularly our students from marginalized backgrounds. There are many essential skills that students need to learn while receiving a financial education in DC. We should be teaching students how to save, why it's important to save, and the different ways you can save money, budgeting money, develop a deep understanding of credit and credit scores, including loans, and to know all the different banking products available to them. It is also necessary for students to know how they're useful. Understanding the difference between renting and owning and the pros and cons of each is also a very important skill. Last but not least, students should also learn the investing basics, including the difference between all the various ways to invest your money. As an adult going into teaching this class, I thought I would know all of the concepts that I would be teaching in this course. However, upon reviewing and then teaching the curriculum, I also learned alongside my students. To share one example, I knew what a credit score was, but what I didn't know all the specifics about how to maintain a high credit score or how easy it is for your score to decrease and how difficult it is to increase it. Financial literacy education easily bridges the gap between merely understanding the financial principles to students gaining a deeper understanding of how to apply it in their lives in several ways. In my class, I often use real-world scenarios, hands-on experiences, and interactive learning simulations tools on class assignments and projects. I also invite guest speakers from various aspects of the financial industry to speak to the students as experts in their field. Students need to be able to see how what they're learning in class applies to their own lives. For example, one project requires students to research the job, career they would like to have after college, find out which degree they need to get to have that job or career, how much that degree will cost them, and then use the starting salary for that job to use as a starting point to create a budget for renting an apartment or house in the ward they live in or a ward they would like to live in. They also have to create a budget to see if they would be even able to afford living where they like to live. This project demonstrates how effective real-world applications are in the classroom. There have been so many alumni who have come back to express how much they are thankful for taking my class and how it helped them buy a car, maintain their credit, etc. No student ever asks, how am I or when am I going to need this in my life? They all understand that this class is one of the most beneficial classes they can have in high school. In order for students to be the most successful in this class, educators need professional development and access to resources available to them. I recently attended the Jumpstart National Educator Conference, and I wish I had known about this conference when I first began teaching this class almost 10 years ago. As a first-time attendee, I learned about so many resources that are available to me as a financial literacy educator. So many organizations understand the importance of financial literacy education that they offer their resources at no cost. I learned about and gained valuable lessons that I could take back and use in my classes right away. I would recommend DC take a look at the well-developed national standards for personal financial education that the Jumpstart Coalition has already developed. I would also highly recommend teachers complete a financial literacy certification course. These courses are offered by several organizations, Amplify, Next Gen Personal Finance, and Jumpstart, to name a few. Thank you for the opportunity to share my experience with you today. I look forward to answering your questions and hope my testimony guides the board in developing standards and curricula that support all of DC students.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Let me first say that I applaud the efforts in developing financial standards, which I guess will lead to financial curriculum for DC. As Dr. Grant mentioned, I was able to take a look at some of the standards and offer some of my critiques. And so therefore, let me start off with, I applaud you. In general, as a higher ed administrator, I look at the standards to sort of be a foundation or a building block for high school students that may roll into an undergraduate position at the academy, right? And so from that, I think that the standards actually do what I think you guys want them to do. And so there's one question / critique I would have. It's not a critique, I would say it's a question, is what exactly is it that you want from the totality of the standards? And generally, most would say that a part of increasing the financial literacy, like my colleague to the left of me said, is to increase well-being. Also, what is mentioned is to decrease the wealth gap. I would say now that this is not enough to decrease the wealth gap, right? But sure, it's a start. Let me speak directly to some more specific items that I read. I'm sure I won't take all of your time. In general, I think that names matter. And so when the nomenclature of this initiative, financial literacy, hits my ears, it is then sort of critiqued in a fashion where I expect that if someone has financial literacy, then they have the basic premise and the basic elements of understanding finance. If I then sort of trifurcate this name from financial literacy to financial competency to financial fluency, then it gets more towards where I would understand one level of foundation, another in the intermediate realm, and then another in the advanced sector. And so remember, I'm coming at this from a higher ed perspective. I, as the director of the Center for Financial Excellence at Howard, am trying to put out portfolio managers, risk managers, people of what we call high finance, equity traders, and the like. And so I would say that a recommendation would be to understand that some parts of what I saw as the standards, some are actually at a beginner level, but some take it way past that, right? And so, I mean, I think that's good, but then I think the nomenclature should reflect that. The second sort of comment that I have is that in some places, again, the colleague to the left of my colleague to the left of me sort of brought it out, is that some of the standards could influence bias on anyone that is teaching if they didn't have sort of proper education on how to teach it. I do list some of those here. I can run through those quickly. Clearly, as you can see, I didn't write my testimony, so I think I probably have homework to do, or one of my grad students do as well. So let me say specifically that I think the savings 12-3. So whenever you can go back and take a look at those standards, it reads, analyze the risk of mobile payment accounts, stock trading applications, and cryptocurrency accounts that are not federally insured. That in and of itself adds a level of bias against crypto and towards maybe banks, right? And from my point of view, the way that I have to sort of teach my students is I can't have a level of bias, right? And so maybe I don't trade in the cryptocurrency markets, but maybe they do. And so I want to make sure that you understand that there can be some element there. Thank you.
First, I want to thank our panelists, and then I'm going to give some housekeeping instructions. Director Butler is going to call the round of member questions in rounds of 3 minutes. This is a reminder, both to us and to our panelists, that the 3 minutes does include both the ask time and the panelist response. That does not mean, as you noted, that there can't be homework where we follow up on the standards outside of the dais, but we always want to be respectful so we can get to the public comment. Director Butler, I'm going to turn to you.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to start with our student members for the first round of questions. Representative Kelly.
Oh, hello. I don't really have, well, my only question is why can't financial literacy be implemented more into school systems, and why can't it just be a requirement instead of an option?
Well, I'm a teacher, so I just teach what's given to me. I'm fighting for it to be a requirement. I've been asking for it to be a requirement for the longest time. So I'm happy. This is my first year teaching the advanced algebra course this year. That includes financial applications. So that was a great question.
Yes, it should be a requirement.
And I just want to add one more thing. I surveyed my students today just to see how many of them have checking accounts, savings accounts. Do they know the difference between gross income and net income? And the majority of them did not. And they range from age 18 to 22.
Representative Villaflor.
Hi, thank you for your testimonies. I guess my question is, with financial literacy being more like applicable to people's everyday lives, do you see like an increase in student engagement in financial literacy classes?
Yes, I can say that in my financial literacy class, the students are totally engaged because they know everything that they're learning in class is definitely helping them in the real world, as opposed to my AP Calculus class, where all the students aren't always totally engaged because they really don't know when they're going to use AP Calculus in the real world.
I believe it's life skills. So it's not just financial literacy for high school students, but even elementary students. Students should be able to do comparison shopping. Simple tasks is part of life skills. So I think that it's important that they understand the real life application for mathematics in general. If you're just telling them about numbers and you're not showing them how it's applied in the real world, they don't make those connections. So I think it's an opportunity.
Representative Washington.
Hi. Oops, sorry. I wanted to thank you all for coming. I only had one question. What resources do you think teachers could best use when they're teaching the course? Or do you recommend for them to have?
Well, as Ms. Kemp said, she also uses Everify. I've been using Everify in my classroom the entire time I taught it, so almost 10 years. I also use Next Gen Personal Finance. Their financial algebra curriculum is very helpful, and Jumpstart also has some activities. So there's a plethora of resources for financial literacy.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, so I use those as well, but there's a lot of other resources through Wells Fargo and different organizations that are free. Some of the activities my students play interactive games. Can you survive as an Uber driver? A lot of students want to be influencers. Can you live off of that? So there's a lot of things that are interactive, and they can actually make choices and see, deciding between paying for childcare and getting your car fixed. In these interactive games that Next Gen offers, investing. Do you want to invest in crypto, or do you want to invest in stocks? And what does that mean? Should you invest when you're 17 or 50? So making those decisions are important, and I feel like it's accessible because you don't even have to pay for it.
Training on best practices on how to teach it.
Representative Yarkin.
Hi, thank you for your Thank you for your testimony. Thank you very much. This is kind of to Dr. Telemuk's point. Sorry, Telemuk. Yeah, Dr. Kidd. Point earlier, but question can be posed to any of you. How far do you think that the financial literacy standards should go to provide students with the most efficient education without kind of going into the confusing kind of esoteric topics that could muddle the takeaways of the course?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question. And so it depends on the curriculum, the math curriculum of said school or school system, right? So as I looked at the standards, some of the standards went into compound interest. And so to do compound interest, you have to know certain elements of algebra, or even, so advanced algebra, I'd say, right? And so if it doesn't coincide, then we get sort of inefficient and cumbersome if the financial literacy class is taught prior to what is needed, and then we have a problem. So that's where I can see some elements of some problems coming.
So wait, I have a question. So you're saying if the financial literacy course is taught before they learn about the compound interest?
Fair. Let me work out the nuance there. So I think in your question, how far or how advanced should the financial literacy component be? That portion of it, if it gets too advanced, then it might have some issues if it's taught prior to the fundamental foundations.
The reason why I asked you that is because me being at an Opportunity Academy, my students don't always have the traditional pacing. They don't go to Algebra 1, 2, and then to advance. It depends on the schedule. So I think that it kind of helps gel the concepts. Like for example, on the basic level, compound interest in the Algebra 2 class, they struggle with it. However, in the advanced algebra course, they understand interest on top of interest a little bit more than just getting the formula and putting it all together.
So as you can see, how good of a question you asked, right? And so this is why one of my recommendations is to sort of chop it up, right? So the literacy component, then sort of the intermediate component, I call it competency, and then the advanced component, I call it fluency.
Thank you. Representative Patterson.
Thank each of you for coming and speaking with us. First of all, I agree that it should be a requirement. I also agree that this is a life skill that every child should have as they get ready to graduate and enter the real world. It's very important. My concern is around proficiency and how you adjust for proficiency. As you know, unfortunately, we have a lot of children that are not proficient in their particular grade level. How would we go about making sure that this needed skill, this needed requirement, that we're going to call it, that every child gets it before they graduate, even though they may not be proficient in their grade level.
So there are many financial literacy topics that require low-level math skills, and students can still be proficient in the financial literacy topics like saving and budgeting without having algebra or algebra 2. So there are many financial literacy topics that don't require higher level math, and if the students are exposed to those financial literacy topics, they will still be more successful than a student who haven't seen any of that at all without the math foundation.
I feel like if it's integrated, students will be proficient because at every level, like you said, life skills, they go to the supermarket. So understanding the counting principles and different things, they don't make the connection with real life application. So I feel like if you have a curriculum that's hands-on, where you have field trips and where you're counting money, I think it would help with all the other content areas. I don't think it should just be a class that they take at high school. I think it needs to be integrated from K all the way up, because I think it would help with all the content areas if you implement it. Because then students, I feel like they will grasp those other concepts. It will make sense to them more so than just keeping it as a separate entity.
Yes.
And that's exactly what I was looking for. So I really appreciate your answer on that, because I don't want it to just be a standalone where this is when you take it, or you have to do these classes before you can take any type of financial literacy. I really would like to see it integrated so that it is part of their learning process throughout. So thank you for that answer.
I just want to say
Yes.
one more thing. There's a lot of books and there's a lot of things that can be integrated for literacy that's online. When I was doing my research with other standards, the national standards, you have literacy books and everything that could be entwined with this. So I think at every level.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
Representative Best.
Yes, thank you. I think that if we think that the purpose of education is to prepare our youth to be successful in life, then this is definitely necessary. So thank you all for all that you've done. With that said, financial literacy is not like a new thing, right? It's been around for a little while. I think the question is more so around implementation and to make sure that the quality of instruction is high. With that said, what are some challenges our educators might face when implementing these financial literacy standards, especially at a high school level? And what are some specific strategies or solutions that you all have found effective in overcoming these challenges? And that goes for any of you.
I would say a challenge would be some teachers maybe not knowing the information themselves prior to teaching the class. Like, I thought I knew everything about that I was going to teach, but I learned more as I taught the class for myself. So I think a challenge would be some teachers not knowing the content, and what they can do to learn it is to enroll in these professional development certification courses that will teach them what they need. And there are so many free certification courses for teachers who teach financial literacy.
I think one of the challenges may be the change with technology, knowing the nuances, like understanding Cash App, understanding Apple Pay, the dangers behind those things, fraud. So I think it's important for them to be trained properly and to continuously educate themselves on the different areas, especially when it comes to finance, investing, retirement, because I think some people, I surveyed my teachers as well, and a lot of them don't know how to buy a home, and a lot of the teachers don't know how certain things work, like credit score. So I think educating them first and let them experience maybe the course before they implement it.
Sure, I echo my colleague with the role of technology and what it plays, and then conscious and unconscious bias.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Representative Goulet.
Well, thank you all for coming to a very helpful panel and trying to understand this. Would you see financial literacy as something that would be, connected or integrated into like the mathematics curriculum, social studies, or would you see this as a standalone class? And the reason I ask that is, you look at Hardy right now, Hardy Middle School, it's just one example that has the longer class periods, so it would be very difficult to try to then fit in kind of a standalone class into that, but from the discussion here, I could easily see this being something that we may want to incorporate into mathematics or our new social studies standards. So how do you see this working in terms of if we try to do a little bit at each grade level, how would it fit in with our existing classes, assuming we couldn't do a standalone class?
I think it could be incorporated, like I said, in every class. If I'm in English, I can read a book about savings or read a book about me saving acorns, anything, and tie that into financial literacy. As you get to the older grades, it could be in economics, history, math, advisory, so many different ways that it can be integrated in different courses. What else? Science.
I can say when I taught the class for the first 8 years, it was a standalone course. It was just financial literacy, and some colleges weren't accepting that as a fourth math class, and so we changed the class to advanced algebra with financial applications, and it integrated well in the math class. Many of the topics that I teach in the advanced algebra class, students have seen in Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and then we go beyond to some pre-calculus classes. So it could also be integrated into any math course at any math level for any grade.
And I just looked, I saw that they have AP microeconomics, macroeconomics. Like for students who really found a passion in this, is there any track right now in DC that give kids an opportunity to take those courses for college credit, or is it something we'd want to build in, as we develop this curriculum?
So for college credit, typically they take the AP level courses. I think DC has those.
Okay, great. I don't think we have them now, maybe, but.
I just wanted to say, I started out as a computer applications teacher, and I taught financial literacy in that course. So depending on how the school is set up, you can embed it in various ways.
Well, thank you so much. I agree, and I really appreciate your time tonight. That's really helpful.
All right, so it looks like one of these lights are going to go off on me, but let me answer you directly. It should be embedded in all for the reasons that my colleague said, and then again, I'm biased, but I think it should be trifurcated for the reasons that he brought up earlier, which was, and then at the very end as a capstone class, you could then test or assess what sort of proficiency level we have with the students.
Thank you. Representative Henderson.
Hi, thank you all for your testimony. I think that OSSI went to some, deliberately avoided having expert reviewers from financial institutions, and I appreciate that. And I'm wondering, I'm also hearing you talk about like real world practical experience, field trips. That all sounds great. Free resources, that sounds great too. But a lot of those would be tied to specific financial institutions or institutions. What kind of guardrails would we need to protect students from being influenced by, say, a curriculum that's designed by Wells Fargo? Or if you're teaching through certain applications and not others? And I guess it gets back to your question about bias of, like, are the standards pushing one way or the other?
I haven't seen DC standards, but working with Next Gen and Jumpstart, the national standards are across the U.S. So it's not with a financial institution like a bank. I'm just saying other resources are provided by Wells Fargo and different organizations, but the curriculums that we've used are pretty much across the board.
So I guess this is directed to me because I have seen the standards, and that was one of the things that jumped out. So if your question is how can we put up a guardrail against a Wells Fargo biased approach to financial literacy, yeah, that's a sort of wide-ranging sort of answer that I would give. In general, right now, I would say that this is why I had advocated for best practices in teaching it and had advocated for training so that we would know biases, right? But typically what happens on the higher education level, when agencies or institutions like that come in, we ask them not to be biased and to only impart specific skill set and specific knowledge, not even how it's done at their particular agency.
You may not know this, but even like Jumpstart Coalition, like, should we trust them?
I haven't seen Jumpstart, but she has.
I would say yes, we should trust Jumpstart with using their resources. I haven't seen myself any specific bias that will push students in either way, and they try to stay away from language that would sway kids to in either direction.
I believe also Next Gen also, as well as Jumpstart Coalition, it's pretty a level playing field. That's why I said I think it's the foundation for which our standards should apply.
Thank you. Representative Reed.
Good evening. Thanks for coming. And I've been really enjoying the dialogue between you all as panelists and how you're questioning one another and bouncing ideas off of one another. So I thank you for that. Also, with the two educators, I know you're here for financial literacy standards, but would love to also pick your brain about teacher retention at some point, because you both, I mean, we always hear about high turnover, but we have two examples of educators who have been in the system for a while. So thank you. With all of that and the thanks, and also thanks to Howard, because, yeah. And I'm laughing because, no, OSSI, we pushed OSSI to make sure that our HBCUs were included, and this level of dialogue, for me personally, sitting up here and listening has been a first. That's my personal opinion. So I hope we can also bounce ideas with your colleagues at Howard for other topics that the board runs into. My question is, you were mentioning, Ms. Kemp, about relation to, like, you have 18 and 22-year-olds who, don't know between gross pay, net pay. And Dr. Telema, you were mentioning that there's a lot in these standards that sometimes gets pretty advanced. I'm curious, and your initial question about what do we want from these standards. I'm curious, should we, and you all had the benefit of seeing them, so I'm happy to look at them and then have more follow-up questions to you, but should we be going that far, or are they appropriate, or should we be thinking about that 18, like, are we preparing students for, careers in math? Are we preparing students for, I guess, a well-rounded education to, like, living? I don't know if that makes sense to you, but curious about what your thoughts on are and how expansive they are, and also knowing that there's a reality of we can write great standards, but then there's a time component. So curious about your thoughts.
Yeah, go all the way.
Okay.
Students' brains are malleable. You can squeeze everything that you need into them. It's probably more of the approach, what sticks, but that's where the teachers get into the mix on how they actually receive the information. And also from those who write the curriculum, it has to sort of coincide with my colleague to the left said, we don't have sort of a step-by-step approach. Then if that's the case, then you have to alter the standards to fit an institution like hers. But in general, yeah, take it all away. They can learn it. It'll be fine. And I think, I don't have my glasses on, so to the left also asked about is this pushing towards math? And I would probably say that there are some math skills that are used based on the standards that I saw, but not anything too advanced for someone that should be a senior in high school to pick up.
Thank you. Looking forward to following up. I took a lot of time just thanking you for your expertise, but thanks.
Representative Williams.
Question, but I did want to respond. I feel like just like we have the different NAF Academy programs, why can't we have entrepreneurship and in all schools where students actually have student stores and they're able to create their own business, make t-shirts, do whatever they want, but get them prepared for going to college, creating their own business, just different areas. So I feel like that needs to be considered. Overall, I think that it does need to be considered that they can be taught about the paychecks, how to buy a home. We talk about closing the achievement gap and living a good life. These students need to know how to travel, how to be able to vacation, be able to save their money, be able to retire. Start saving at 17 so that you don't have to worry about retiring and how to do your taxes. So I think it's important we start.
Thank you. Representative Williams.
Yes, thank you all for your testimony. You passed the mic to Ms. Tatum Gorbs, so I guess I'll start with you. So you and Ms. Kemp had kind of commented, that younger students should also, be familiar with money and financial literacy. What are your thoughts on teaching not just high schoolers but younger students this content as well?
I think it's definitely important to start the earlier the better, and the national standards are K through 12. So there are standards already developed for kindergartners up through 12th grade, and if we want to teach them, as far as Dr. Kidd said, then we need to start earlier than just high school. You can't learn everything from 9th to 12th grade. You can learn a foundation, but if we want the kids to learn things that they're going to need when, to retire, then we need to start earlier and in lower school.
Thanks. I want to build off that and then give you a chance to respond as well, Ms. Kemp. So you had said a lot of things that were just very real world based, right? Same with Ms. Tatum Gorham. So with the national standards for professional financial education that you had mentioned, do you feel like there are too many? Do you feel like there are too few? Do you feel like they're just right? You're choosing things that are going to be meaningful in students' lives, but we're trying to produce standards that also guide educators on what to focus on. So how do you see the standards in terms of the quantity? Where are we at with that? Or as a teacher, you just do what you feel is best, right? But if you want to weigh in on that, I'm curious of your thoughts.
The standards that I use or the standards that you created? Because I'm not sure.
The standards, if a teacher didn't have your experience and they got the national standards for professional financial education, do you feel like they'd know what to do, or would they be overwhelmed? Would they be lost? Can they get to everything? That's kind of what I'm getting at.
I feel like they should be able to get to everything because most people live financial lives. So students, they begin getting money for birthdays and different things. So if a child is 5 years old and they're getting $5 from their auntie, what's wrong with teaching them to save $250 and spend $250?
Right.
I think for us to understand what well-being is, we have to be financially literate. It's not just being able to read a book. It's not being able to count 1, 2, 3. So I don't think standards are a separate entity. I think it's what we live on a daily basis, and that's what teachers need to teach the students.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I only have 20 seconds left, but Dr. Kidd, you've been very efficient. So when you've mentioned training on best practices, what does that look like, or is there a document that you could send us, to kind of make this realized?
It's not a document. Stanford University flew myself and my team out there, and they went through best practices. So maybe they can fly you and your team out there too.
Thank you. Thank you.
Representative Chang.
Thank you, panelists. I actually want to start with the students in the crowd. see many of you. Thank you for coming. Would actually really love your take on this conversation as well, if you're willing to message us how you would have wanted to learn about financial literacy during your time. And to the panelists, one question for each of you, which is how we should assess how successful we have been at implementing these after the first year.
Yeah, so that goes back to the question that I asked you guys. What is it that you're looking for from this? Then I could probably work backwards to figure out some metrics for your success or failure.
I was going to say the same thing. What is the goal, overall goal? Is it just to understand?
I was hoping we would hear from you. What would your goal be for when you have your financial literacy class? How do you think you've done successfully?
Well, I just started teaching it.
Mm-hmm.
But just from my survey and conversations with my students, some of them know a lot more than when they entered the room in August. They understand what a paycheck looks like. They understand what taxes are. And even though most people don't write checks, they know how to write a check and keep a registry and how to balance their checkbook. So basically, I just tied that in to today. Most people write electronic checks. So just seeing how they're thinking and how they process things, and they're able to make different decisions. Because even in the question, are you going to buy this over that? I'm a shopper. I explained to them, I know how to calculate any sale easily, and I showed them my strategy. But that also encouraged mental math. So I feel like you can assess it in different ways. It's not just on a paper assessment.
All right, so from the university's point of view, for my finance students coming into undergrad, I would like them to be at a level of financial fluency as opposed to financial literacy. And let me give you just a quick example. My colleague to the left gave me something that I would probably ask my students. You have $5, what are you going to do with? And if they told me $250 they would save and $250 they would spend on whatever, then I would ask them, I have to draw out, why are you saving $250? What sort of interest are you getting on the $250? What is your risk assessment for not investing in that? So that requires a different level of acumen.
I would just add that we use the Amplify Financial Literacy Program, and the students have to pass. So everything they said, but also the students have to pass each module with a 70% or higher, and the percentage of kids who are Amplify certified will determine how successful my class has been.
I just want to say also in my class is similar, it's project-based. So the first project is finding a job, finding a salary, looking, they may live here in DC or another state, looking at that salary and see, can you survive? By looking at the mortgage, they have to do an analysis, so.
Thank you. Vice President O'Leary.
When I first came on the board, the student representative talked about how important it was to have a financial literacy course in our school, and we didn't have any. The young people who are here tonight, when you go to college, the first thing that you're going to experience at college are all these tables at orientation where they're going to give you a free credit card with money on your credit card. And if you don't know about what that means, then you're going to be in debt in September if you start school in August. So that this financial literacy course is something that I know that since I'm the oldest person in the room, I never even thought about anything like that when I was in school. But it's something that's extremely important. But it's revolutionary, because the things that you have been saying tonight have to do with changing curriculum, with opening up classes, with doing all these things that go against the standard thing that happens in school every day. And so it's going to be a battle for the people in charge of education to accept the fact that this is such an important class. My question, really for the two of you who are current teachers, and you went to your training, is how much of the training that you were in had to do with teaching kids from K through 8 about financial literacy?
So at our training, there were many different levels, and we were split up based on which area we taught in. So there was an elementary group, a middle school group, and a high school group. And I only went to the high school things, but there was training for all teachers for all levels.
That's how we met, so, in the high school sessions. But yes, at the conference, they did have for each different grade level and how it could be implemented.
Because I know that it's, if the students just get tastes of this all the way by the time they get to high school, that then that course will really have a lot of relevance, because a lot of adults aren't financially literate, especially about pensions and about buying a house or a car on credit and things like that. Thank you very much.
President Thompson.
Good evening. So I'm actually really excited that we're going to have the first ever financial literacy standards. I've heard a lot. I represent Ward 7. I've heard a lot from my community about the necessity for this. I have two questions that I'm just going to go ahead and lay out. They are not necessarily related. Feel free to tackle whichever you would like first. One, I'm curious if there are any challenges around cultural competency and how we implement the standards. We talk about that in other subjects, and I would imagine that's true for financial literacy as well. And two, since we opened public comment today, for people in the community who have a sense, know this is important, are there certain questions or things they should be asking of OSSI or of us as we think about this process?
So with regards to the cultural competency question, most definitely. I saw a couple of standards which there's no point in me giving you the detailed number. I can do that later on in testimony. That I saw an element of bias could be presented there, and an element of not being sort of competent of said surroundings, right? And the reason I bring it up quickly is that there had been a time where counselors would steer certain people, certain demographics into certain fields. And so underneath the tab of one of the standards is income, and one of the questions is, what is the best way to get income for you? That could be a place where, well, you need to go here and you can go here. So yes, an element of bias training and cultural competency is something. The next question I can opine on now, but I don't really even remember it, unfortunately. Do you want to restate it?
It's the public. So we're asking for public comment. Everybody's not experts in financial literacy, but we want their feedback. So what would you all tell them to be looking for?
Yeah, and so I asked it before, what is it that you want from this? Like what sort of level of competency or literacy that you want? So that's what they should ask.
As far as the cultural aspect of it, definitely, I feel like in some cultures there's distrust in financial institutions and how they manage their money, how they protect their money, how they borrow, how they spend it, and then that goes into historically purchasing homes, automobiles. There's a lot of history behind those things. And as far as the public, what should they be asking OSSI? What resources will you provide for teachers? What resources will you provide for parents, for all age ranges?
Thank you, Madam President. That concludes our public panel witnesses' testimony and questions.
All right, I want to thank the panelists again. I know many of my colleagues have already thanked you and have very much enjoyed your testimony and the discussion. Your thoughts and suggestions are definitely going to help us as a board as we continue to collaborate with OSSE to ensure the financial literacy standards meet the needs of all our students, and hopefully they will be also helpful in guiding the public because public comment started today. So the financial literacy standards are out today. I'm saying that on the broadcast so the people know, and they know, go look for them today. The State Board will now recess for 5 minutes. It is, hold on, it is 6:46. We will be back at 6:51, and when we return, we will welcome our public witnesses. Thank you.
You're blessing me, Taya. Thank you. I promise you I'm going to get you next time.
I got cornbread next round.
What? Damn. I thought we weren't supposed to have food for this one. On the low? Yeah, I know. I got a calculus on Thursday. My last calculus, I got it. Worst test grade I've ever gotten in my life.
You're gonna pass that?
Oh yeah, maybe. We'll see.
Maybe, you better.
What I'm not. Hopefully, graduation's not a concern. I mean, that would be pretty dire. I think I'm a little bit off from concerning about that.
Showing your youth.
Yeah, I type mine on
I was like, Common App, what's that?
Yeah, I literally don't remember. And I'm not old, and I type mine. And I said, oh, so some of those missing in the comments. I remember putting it in and then like rolling it and then like having to line it up so that I could erase like the typing.
I don't need none of my applications. They'll do the old factory way, right, Robert? Yeah. You asked me questions that I would never understand about you born after the year 2000. There's a whole like mind shift. I have a niece that was born January that. And I just feel like everybody after her is like her and the rest of them. The rest of them. All the rest of them are lost. All right. Our 5-minute break has expired. I'm asking all the members to promptly return to the dais so we can reconvene.
Oh, no.
What happened? Let me get out the bread.
Representative Patterson, Representative Williams,
I swear to God, nothing more I hate than like, I feel like I'm mooching off of you.
Representative Best. Where is Representative Best?
Have like a whole feast.
Oh, okay, moving. There we go.
We're gonna trade
On the move.
Oh, it's a month.
I
We could do
appreciate
like a big thing every week, every time we come. Like, I bring stuff.
Oh, I see
and you
the
bring
chair.
stuff,
Okay.
and we have a feast.
Y'all weren't listening to me.
Like,
Y'all were looking like this one.
Do it.
We actually?
Do it.
So, like, we had
All right.
Let me know because
You could
So
see on
we
the
hear
TV. We can see on the TV. You can like see the dishes above.
we hear public testimony.
Forks and knives.
We hear testimony from public witnesses at every public meeting, and your comments become part of our official record. If you would like to speak at a future public meeting, please sign up on our website at sboe.dc.gov. Or you can contact our staff by email, sboe@dc.gov, or by phone at 202-741-0888. Tonight, we have 22 witnesses who submitted public testimony. We will hear from those in attendance in a panel format, and you will be broken up into groups of 5. Each witness will have up to 3 minutes to provide comments. Please note, you must use the microphone at the table. It is already on. The timer light on the table will be green for the first 2.5 minutes, yellow for the last 30 seconds, and red after 3 minutes have lapsed. After our public witnesses speak, we will pause for questions from board members. Board members still have 3 minutes for questions for our public witnesses, and please, those 3 minutes should include the question or comment and the answer. Director Butler will call the public witnesses to the table and announce the question rounds. She will also assist with timing to ensure our witnesses and board members, including myself, stay within their allotted time. Director Butler, you may ask public witnesses to come to the table.
Thank you. Will the following witnesses please come to the table? Joanna Turner, Cher Belton, Anna Mayer, Maya Riggs, Sonia Tawani, Nima O'Donovan. Wait, that's fine. Okay. We will start with Ms. Belton and then move down the table.
Good evening, DC School Board members. My name is Sherry Belton, and I am the Health Coordinator at Columbia Heights Education Campus under the leadership of Maria Tukeva. I'm sitting before you in order to advocate for paternity rights for our male students. This will include home and hospital instruction for a minimum of 3 weeks post-delivery, as well as excused absences for 1 or more class periods for attendance for prenatal and postnatal appointments. Additionally, receiving excused absences in the event their child or children are sick. This advocacy is in conjunction with supported medical documentation. Currently at Columbia Heights Education Campus, we have 2 couples, 1 male student who are expecting children, and 1 male student who is a single father. All of the students are taking responsibility and maintaining good grades as they prepare for parenthood. And this additional measure can further ensure students receive the academic and socio-emotional supports that DC offers. As a district who strives on equitable opportunities, please create a specific, measurable, achievable, relevant and time-based continuum of initiatives so our students, both female and male, can stay on track for their college and career goals. Thank you for your time and your attention.
You can just pass the mic down after each person. Oh.
Hello. Hello, board members. My name is Anna Mayer, and I'm a student at School Without Walls High School and a leader of our school's Sunrise Movement Hub. The Sunrise Movement is a nationwide youth-led organization focused on stopping climate change and bringing about climate justice via political activism and grassroots organization. Right now, the goal of hubs across the country, including ours, is to pass a local Green New Deal for Schools resolution in the hope to solidify it into legislation in the future. The Green New Deal for Schools has 5 demands that our movement sees as fundamental to a safe, adequate education. We demand safe and green infrastructure, free and healthy meals, climate curricula, climate disaster plans, and pathways to green jobs in our public schools. I love my school. I love school in general, always have and always will. It becomes difficult then to watch schools across the district neglect to provide what our movement sees as essential. In many ways, DC is lucky. We're lucky that the temperatures only reach 100 degrees in the summer and not 120. We're lucky we only get the wildfire smoke and not the fire itself. We're lucky to have the water fountains in our school work most of the time and to have working water fountains, even if the filter is always red. We're lucky that our teachers admit climate change is not a hoax, even if they neglect to educate us about it. We're lucky we have a path to college, even though our school doesn't teach us about potential alternatives in our dying world. We're lucky that the flood water has not yet seeped under school doors and the wind hasn't blown trees into the roofs. What scares me is that this is only the beginning of what is to come. In my lifetime, the snowstorms have stopped. I've experienced red skies and melting pavement. The water has risen and storms have struck. It will only get worse. My education is one of my biggest priorities. Again, I'm lucky because I've remained in school and healthy for 16 years. Increasingly, kids across the country don't have the same right. Eventually, that will be the case here too. I understand that you don't hold all the power. I understand we cannot ask you to fix climate change or save the state of this country. All that I am asking you to do is use your power and your influence to do what is best for the students under your jurisdiction. We are here to say that the Green New Deal for Schools is what is best for the students of DC. We've shared the Green New Deal for Schools resolution via email with you, as well as a pledge. We have 2 asks. First, we ask that you consider this drafted resolution at the next working session and see if any committees would be open to taking it on. Second, we ask that you consider pledging to prioritize the demands in the Green New Deal for Schools that I articulated previously. The pledge is straightforward, simple, and mostly symbolic, showing us, the rest of the city, and our movement that you will support us in this fight. I'd now like to give the floor to some of my fellow School Without Walls Sunrise members.
My name is Maya Riggs, and I am a student at School Without Walls in downtown DC. I am here tonight to testify on the extremely pressing need for a Green New Deal for schools and encourage you all to support it. For me, being able to enjoy nature and the outdoors is one of the most valuable things in the world. I bike to school nearly every day through Rock Creek Park, and I never tire of being in the morning air, seeing the leaves and trees change with the seasons. I spend the majority of my free time rowing on the Potomac River, hiking with my friends, and running outside. When I look out at the trail I have ridden down to dirt, my heart breaks at the thought of its destruction. Our environment is something that we need to protect at all costs, and the Green New Deal for Schools is instrumental in supporting a sustainable school system and creating a new generation of climate activists. By having increased climate curriculum and pathways to green careers, we would be given accessible opportunities to push for change and try to save our planet from imminent destruction. It is easy to dismiss the impacts of climate change, the slowly increasing fall temperatures, the rising water levels, and the smoky air quality. Yet these problems should not be easily dismissible, as they will only get worse as we continue to ignore them. Every single day of my life, I worry about the future as the impending climate crisis worsens, and meeting these demands is a real chance to make a change for the better. Thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Sonia Talwani, and I'm a student at the School Without Walls High School. I'm here today to ask for support for the Green New Deal for Schools resolution. I believe in the Green New Deal for schools not only because it could substantially reduce carbon emissions while creating good-paying jobs, but because it would be a crucial step toward racial equality in our school system by prioritizing Black, brown, and working-class communities, which are most heavily affected by the climate crisis. The Green New Deal for schools would be an investment in the futures of all public school students. It would prioritize energy-efficient heating and cooling systems benefiting schools long-term, and with connections to good-paying union jobs in students' futures. This is important to me as part of the 84% of my generation that is worried about climate change. More than half of my generation says that climate change makes them feel afraid, sad, anxious, powerless, and helpless. I'm part of the 40% of my generation that fears having children one day. For me, that's because of irreversible climate change and a weakening education system. As someone who wishes to pursue a career in education, this scares me. I want to be a public school teacher, but I wonder if I could do so without safe and clean buildings and climate disaster plans in place. Not only would the Green New Deal for schools be good for current students, but it could pave the way to benefit students and teachers generations into the future. To reiterate, I am asking you to support the Green New Deal for Schools resolution because it would be beneficial to students long-term, especially minority groups disproportionately affected, and help rid future generations of the burden of climate change. Thank you.
Good evening, council members. My name is Nevo Donovan. I'm also a student at School Without Walls High School, and I'm also a member of the Sunrise Movement. Most importantly, I am here to encourage you to support the Green New Deal for Schools resolution for DC Public Schools. I am new to the Sunrise Movement, but in these past few months, I have already gotten to see the power of youth using their voices, and now I know just how imperative it is that I use mine too. Just over a month ago, along with other high school Sunrise hubs from around the country, we went to a protest at Representative Kevin McCarthy's office to show our support for the Green New Deal for schools. There, I realized how important it is for American youth to speak up for what we want, which is why I'm in front of you right now. I came to understand that although our government is based on democracy, it is no longer for the people and by the people. And although we will ultimately be the ones dealing with the problems of a broken system, the American youth are given no say in solving these problems before we have to deal with the preventable consequences. While it was empowering to be part of a movement focused on bettering our world, it was also a devastating realization that the people in charge of our country are working against us. Passing the Green New Deal for schools would not only benefit our environment and give opportunities to students, but it would also set a precedent for young people like us to become involved in American democracy. So I'm here, sitting in front of you today, imploring you to give us a say in our future. to give us access to climate education beyond encouragement from teachers to recycle, to make a plan for future climate disasters we will face, to give us pathways to jobs that will work to better our environment and allow us to breathe clean air, to give underprivileged and impoverished students nutritious and eco-friendly lunches. Change is essential, and therefore so is your support. We yield the rest of our time.
Thank you all for your questions, for your testimonies. We will now move to member questions. We are going to start with our student representatives. Representative Kelly.
Okay, so my only question really is, how can we bring more awareness to students about the climate change that you're proposing?
Well, one of the demands, and one of my favorite demands actually in the Green New Deal for schools, is including climate curriculum, which would not only incorporate climate change into one specific class, which I don't think really needs to happen, but more into everyday, like the financial literacy stuff actually, like reading books about nature and like learning about recycling and all of that, but also learning about the real world consequences and the things that are happening when the people make all the decisions to continue fossil fuels and all of that. And I think that that's really important.
Representative Villaflor.
Hi, thank you for your testimonies. I was wondering about the pathways to green jobs part. What does that look like inside of schools so far as curriculums and maybe programs?
I'll take that one again. So for Pathways to Green Jobs, a lot of the time, in my experience and the experience of a lot of high school students in DC, we're told that our options are either trade school or college, which are options. We get presentations about that. Our teachers talk to us very frequently about what our futures will look like, but we're not taught about that in the context of a sustainable future. And recently, in the last couple months, President Biden's Climate Corps initiative happened and started, and I think that's an example of how this can happen. And I think that the best way to bring students into that initiative, which, if you guys don't know, is for the workforce to be based in sustainable jobs and sustainable careers, I think providing the same education that we provide for colleges and for trade school about Climate Corps and about other means of climate-friendly and sustainable education.
And what parts of current curriculums would you want to change or impact? Would that be social studies, math, and or?
All of the above.
Thank you. Representative Washington.
Hi, I wanted to thank you all for coming. I only had one question. You mentioned in the resolution draft establishing a program. What would that program look like more specifically? It was a program for community gardens.
So DC already is doing quite well, especially compared to the rest of the country, about community gardens. For example, School Within School has a lot of gardens. There are a lot of communal gardens across the city. We think that bringing that more into schools and making it more of an initiative that teachers and that administration bring to students, and also community members and people like you who are in contact with the government and with the citizens. Bridging that connection so that everybody has access to gardens.
Thank you.
Representative Yarkin.
Hi, as a School Without Walls student, it's nice to see some familiar faces here. But I do have a question. You're kind of asking members to do kind of a big thing here, to pledge support for pretty specific, kind of logistically complicated things like retrofitting schools, reforming school lunches, and I mean, regardless of the members' beliefs, pledging support for something as broad and complex as these can kind of bring on a whole host of issues and headaches for the members. I know I'm not a member myself, but just kind of look at it pragmatically. Is there any plan to actually implement these things, or are you just sort of leaving it to the bureaucrats to figure out?
I think that the main thing that we're asking for is support so that we can move the resolution up to higher mayoral offices. So to be able to have some sort of backing of people in power saying we agree with what these students are trying to do would help us actually enact change and try and get it passed and implemented into a larger system of schools.
Does that answer your question?
Sorry, yes, it does. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll stare at you guys.
Okay. I'm loving the questions by our student representatives. Thank you. They're very good questions. And thank you guys for being here today. One thing I was noticing as everyone came up, and as our representative said, everyone seems to be from School Without Walls. Is that correct? Okay. With that being said, my question goes to how are you guys going to go about it? Do you have plans to expand this across different schools and bringing more people and to include, because we are 47% charter, how do you build capacity around this movement? I love the movement. I think it's great, but I would like to see it across, both sectors and schools and across the river. I live east of the river.
I am so glad you asked that question because there are already 2 other Sunrise hubs in DCPS at Latin Charter School, which is a charter school, and at Jackson Reed, and we're actively working to connect with them to continue this initiative. And we also can always make connections to other schools, and considering the representation we've got here, this is only a fraction of our club. We are optimistic about engaging with people from other schools and communities.
Okay, since I have a little time, is there events that you guys plan coming up in the very near future that people can kind of like attend, learn more about this resolution? As my colleague, student representative, said, this is a huge thing that you're asking us to take on. So we can learn a little bit more what you're doing, what you're asking of us, and what actually you have in place.
Well, we're planning on seeing you every month from now until this happens. In addition to that, we're active on social media, we're active with the other movement, and we have more sporadic other actions that we can get to you guys if you're interested in that.
All right, I appreciate that. Did anyone else want to have anything to say on that matter? Okay, very quickly, I still have a minute left, ma'am. I wanted to get to your testimony for what you're asking for at check. Can you give me a little bit more on that, because it is very new to me in the sense of you're asking for almost like paternity leave, so to leave for kids.
Yes. So right now with DC Public Schools, female students are allocated 6 weeks of home and hospital instruction once they have a baby, and 8 weeks if they have a cesarean section. However, their male counterparts, the child's father is not allocated that same equitable privilege. So it's not adding on, it's not creating a new initiative, it's just extending an initiative that DC has already put in place.
And real quick, can you speak to attendance on that? Are you seeing I believe you mentioned a little bit about attendance.
So with the home and hospital structure that we have in place, there's a pregnancy coordinator in every school. There's also home and hospital specialists for each school, as well as different coordinators that work to ensure that the students attend, as well as the attendance counselors and the families. We collaborate together. When the female students who are having the babies know that we're supporting them with home and hospital.
I'm sorry, we have gone beyond time. I just want to keep us on schedule.
Sorry.
Representative Best.
You may continue.
Thank you.
So because we have that structure in place, all of our students are, I want to say over 50% of our students who are parents do graduate from high school. However, with the male students, some of them do not have that same success because there's no accountability connection between stakeholders such as teachers and counselors once they do have a child. So this will just increase the accountability for our male students and give them advocates to support their fatherhood as well.
Thank you for fighting for our young men especially so that they can be in the lives of their children, especially during those key moments at the beginning of their life. So thank you very much. As we start to think about like what that could look like, what does it look like to you? Like excused absence for a certain amount of time, counseling, what does it look like to you?
So during those 3 weeks, the health coordinators and the pregnancy coordinators reach out to the teachers, as well as home and hospital instruction, and do socio-emotional check-ins with the students. Also, we print out their progress reports and look at the classes, their content classes, and those teachers actually do go into the homes and they have virtual meetings with the students and teach the lessons. And there's also a home and hospital stipend already in place for those teachers for that. And as well as the coordinators at the school and the pregnancy coordinators contacting the students about what other supports that they need. And when they get the excused absences, the teachers are aware via email, text messages, or even with the students. And the students also, we teach them to advocate for themselves, to let their teachers know, tomorrow I have a doctor's appointment for my child, or for the students to even have that relationship with their teachers.
Thank you. I would love to follow up with you about that later on.
Okay.
And for the students, man, I am inspired. You all, thank you from the questions that we're receiving from our SAC to the proposals that you all are having as well. I feel really, really inspired about the future. So thank you very much. And yeah, that's it. I don't have any questions. I look forward to diving in though.
Thank you. Representative Goulet.
Well, I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. When I came here about 21 years ago to DC, you can see the difference in the climate just in that period of time, which is not right. I mean, this is a crisis. I am so grateful you all came today to talk about this, and I will support the resolution. I'm very excited to work with you on it. Several things I think we need to kind of go into. On the issue of the free meals, there was legislation proposed on this, just a couple years ago. I think not only can we support that, we could introduce the bill even to bring it back, because that, to me, is one of the most important things, is giving kids the fuel they need to learn all day, and just making sure that's across the city. So 100% on board with that. The one thing I think we want to really pay attention to is right now, we have a master facilities plan that there's been a working group on. And I'll just say it's been very lackluster so far. Like you're coming in with a vision for what we should be doing. And there has not even really been public discussion or look at this. So I think we need to delay that. And I think if you start talking to council members on this too, that they need to delay it. We need to give ourselves more time to make the master facilities plan truly something visionary to address the issue of climate change. I think what you'll want to see is you look at these initiatives you're looking at, probably electrification's a big part of that. You'll want to hit certain schools that we haven't modernized yet. So the ones that are first in the queue, like we've had parents from Plummer, from Whittier come in and talk about the conditions at those schools that are really substandard. So what you'll want to do, probably start there and then work towards kind of a vision over 10 years of trying to do the whole package, and I think we could stagger that out. But right now, like, we haven't seen anything that resembles the vision you're talking about, and I think really addresses the needs. And then lastly, the idea of green curriculum is something that's really exciting, to try to infuse that into each class and really kind of teach kids, across young kids all the way up through high school what they can do to help and to really realize the urgency of this. I mean, right now, even our own public transit system in DC is in financial crisis. And that's something that I'd love to work with you on as well, but it's kind of not related to what we're doing here. But I just want to really thank you. I'm 100% supportive of this, and I would love to work with you on how we functionally get it done, because I think we need to we can't let that master facilities plan pass us by without getting involved in getting this into that plan. I'm sorry I didn't leave time for questions, but I'm happy to talk to you afterwards. And count me as a yes on this, and looking forward to working with you on it.
Thank you. Representative Henderson.
Hi, Ms. Belton. The maternity rights and rules for attendance, those sit with OSSI, is that correct?
I'm not sure if it sits with OSSI, but I know for DC public schools that in central office, they have a home and hospital plan. So I'm assuming that it might be what I see.
Okay, I think it might be, and I think this might be something that the board can exert influence on. So thank you for bringing this to us. I'm supportive of the proposal you bring. To the students,
Thank you.
did I hear correctly, like this is a national effort to have Green New Deal for public schools? Are there ways that you would look to customize this more to the DC landscape? So to Representative Patterson's point about, the other sector, certainly, are there other ways you see DC specific opportunities here?
Well, DC is doing really well in a lot of aspects, such as the gardening that we were talking about before, recycling, things like that. But there are some things that we're definitely lacking in, like renewable energy is something that we don't see a lot at all in the district, and also pathways to green jobs and climate disaster plans. So I think that there would definitely be things that we would want to focus more on and other things that we have already done a little bit better. I think that the free and healthy lunches is one of the most pressing issues right now, and something that seems to be very achievable that could have a really huge impact on the students in the district.
I also want to add that the climate crisis affects every region differently, and we have to take that into account. That is one of the most important things. We also have to take into account the wealth disparities in DC. We have to take into account that most people here, this is a majority Democratic city, most people generally support climate initiatives. All of this is incredibly customizable, and yeah, we would really appreciate your input and the input of everybody else who has expertise in these issues.
Since you opened the door, I would recommend that you look at transportation a little more, and the resolution speaks about DCPS operated vehicles. OSSI also has a large fleet of vehicles. I think they are moving towards electric, but just something to keep an eye on, and also just how transportation and mobility works generally in DC's education landscape. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Reed.
Good evening, Ms. Belton. Thank you, Ms. Belton, for your testimony. I know I have more words in my vocabulary, but this should be something. And it's just an interesting oversight, that we think about our students identify as female, or who are female, and have not thought about the roles. I'm getting a thumbs up behind you. The roles that their partners play in, their development. So thank you so much. And definitely, I think it's a easy thing to take on, and a much necessary, because just the trickle down effects later in life. The students, thank you. You're welcome. Thank you again so much. The students, I'm curious, do you have, thank you for the proposed resolution. I'm curious, one of my actually former professors is on a school board in Missouri, different than our powers, but she said she learned so much about AstroTurf. And I remember the conversation I had about her about materials. Do you all have recommendations related to materials that should not be used? And I'm asking that because, as I think Representative Goulet hit on it, some of the plans that come through development, are there materials that we should be steering away from as a city? Or should it be more like, here's what you should be focusing on? So I'm curious about your thoughts on that.
I mean, I think the obvious answer is plastics, because steering away from. Sorry, let me clarify that. Yeah, our school uses a massive amount of plastic for all events, and also it is a known fact that School Without Walls does not recycle, and although our teachers encourage us to all the time. Last year somebody put up a poster that said School Without Walls doesn't recycle, and it was a big scandal. So anyway, I wanted to add that, but I'm sure Anna has something more interesting to say.
Was that question in reference to general DC use in
As
building
we're thinking about
infrastructure?
developing buildings, renovating buildings, building new buildings, like what are the things we should steer away from or consider using?
That answer, yes. There also is a lot of new technology currently being developed that I am by no means an expert on the ins and outs of how to build buildings, but we definitely can get back to you with more research.
Yeah.
There are people in our movement who that is
Gotcha.
their strong suit and they know a lot about.
You said you're coming back a few times,
Oh,
so
yeah, we are.
hopefully in one of those visits I can get some information and learn from you about things to steer away from as we look at buildings. So thank you.
Representative Williams.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Belton, for raising this concern. Yeah, I'm happy to support that along with my colleagues, and I hope that you know we can raise it somewhat efficiently with OSSI. I was wondering, can you just you had kind of said in your ask like a couple particular things. Can you say what would be most useful?
Just if a student, for example, has the baby sonogram, just if they miss first and second period with a doctor's note, their absences are excused. If they have a postnatal appointment, and then if they have to rotate who's home with the child because there's like an ear infection with a doctor's note, then the student could be excused. And also extending our current home and hospital program to support paternity leave.
Are these things currently being honored at Check, or they're not currently being honored at Check?
They're not officially honored at DC Public Schools,
okay.
But you know, if there's a doctor's note, you know, they try their best to honor it, but it's not, a student, male or female, is not accepted with a child's doctor's note, only their own. But because it's connected to the female, you can advocate like, well, it's her doctor's appointment. But you can't do the same thing if the father attended the appointment.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I look forward to supporting a resolution that we can be able to move to be able to provide equality for both our male-bodied and female-bodied and male-female students on this issue of paternity. So thank you for showing up today.
Thank you. And also I just wanted to add, also not necessarily just high schools, because we have some students, unfortunately, who have children in middle school. So if it could be an initiative for middle school and high school male and female students.
Thank you. And then students, so I am also a government teacher by day. I teach AP Government, U.S. Government, DC History, which I imagine some of you are taking. And so I'm really heartened to see your advocacy. One of you had mentioned kind of like using your, being able to use your voice, and I just think that's on clear display here. My wonder, and I also share and understand one of your concerns about becoming a teacher, right? And just what that means for, can you expect to have, workable air conditioning in your school, which is not, a given in our city. Have you already had conversations with council members on this topic? And if so, kind of what is the situation with things?
Well, the only council member I've talked to so far is Alistair Chang, and we had a very useful, helpful, and productive conversation. And you can speak for yourself, but you were very receptive and helpful. And yeah, yes.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Y'all are awesome. Thank you for coming out tonight and really, really exercising leadership. I am also inspired and will repeatedly remind my colleagues that this began at a Ward 2 school. So my question, and I want to build upon Representative Goulet's point about how we can best help to functionally get this done. One thing that helps me, and I think will help my colleagues think about this is, and I think I'll ask this to everyone that comes up tonight, what are the school districts, the cities, the states, the countries that you think are good models for us to look at as we implement this in DC?
That's a really good question. In terms of states and cities in the country to look at, we have few role models, which is why it is a big deal that, as Ben Yark and you said, it's a big deal that we're coming to you today. This is unorthodox. This is a big ask. But we think that the symbolism and what this brings and will put out onto a national stage is a really, really big deal. In terms of an international landscape, I am not an expert about the international climate politics. I do know that many countries in the West, especially progressive countries, are more focused on climate change, less so climate justice, because again, less of a known and respected thing that people think about a lot. I guess my short answer to that question is we don't have one. We have different districts, different cities, and different states that have done specific things, like responses to the wildfires in California or renewable energy initiatives, and we can send you some examples if you would like. But in terms of a broad Green New Deal for Schools initiative, we lack that in the country.
Or who or where would you recommend that we turn to? I would even take, read this article.
Well, I can refer you to the Sunrise Movement in general. Like I said, we're a national movement, so there are a lot of resources online about all of the other hubs across the country. In terms of people outside of our movement, there are a lot of government officials, especially in, well, not a lot. There are a fair amount of government officials, especially in Congress, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez from New York, Jamal Bowman, also from New York, who have been advocates for this on a national scale, which we also are a part of. Again, I can send you more information, but that is what comes to the top of my head.
Last 3 seconds. Sonia, I do hope you consider being a public school teacher. Happy to talk about that. And Ms. Mayor, I second what Dr. Reed said. I think duh.
Thank you. Vice President O'Leary.
I have a question for all the members of the movement. How many of you will be 18 years old in 2024? Raise your hands, please. Okay. Good. You had to do the math. I got it. I asked that question because voting next year is going to be extremely important. So that's why I asked that question. The other question goes back on what Representative Chang was talking about. You all are climate change advocates. There are a lot of politicians in this country and other people who don't even think there's a problem. All right? Now, y'all are preaching to the choir, I would imagine. But to get this movement moving, it's going to have to expand dramatically. All right? Because when y'all are talking to each other, it's like everybody's nodding. All right? But there are a lot of people in this country that don't think there's a problem. I mean, there are people in D.C. that probably don't think there was a problem when that fire from Canada came down here and we couldn't breathe for a couple of days. So that's your challenge. All right? I'm going to just leave that with you. I don't know if I'm going to have... I've already asked the questions to the rest of the people in the movement, so when they come up here. Ms. Belton, I have a question about teen fathers.
Yes.
All right, because you've been talking about the mothers and all that, but what about the fathers? Is there any kind of a program for the boys and men who are fathers of these children?
So that's what my advocacy is for. There isn't. There is one for the mothers, which is inequitable. So I'm pushing for one for the fathers to ensure that there is an equitable opportunity for that.
Because that's a sort of an unasked question about the fathers. Because if we talk about children without fathers, it could have to do with just a move to make fathers feel like they're important, all right? So I'd like to know more information about that.
And that's our goal, is if we provide opportunities for the fathers as far as supporting the birth of their child, that they will feel important.
Thank you.
Good evening. So I guess if this panel is any indication of what our public comment is going to be like this evening, it's going to be pretty robust. So thank you all for starting us off strong. Ms. Belton, I'm super familiar with the program you're talking about, and it makes sense what you're asking for. I would probably validate Representative Henderson's assumption about attendance policies being with OSSE. And some of the, and so that's definitely something we can look into, and so you came to the right place. So I want to thank you for that and validate that suspicion. Second, to the students, so I don't know.
Thank you.
No worries. I don't know, somebody emailed me, and I was like, hey, you all have a student representative. I emailed you back and to talk to them. I would say that to Representative Patterson's comments about being able to connect with more students across the city, this is one of the reasons I flagged that your colleague is on the SAC, because they actually happen to run their own committee of students, which I'm sure would be interested in hearing more about this, but also spans schools across the city. One thing that I would like to, maybe two, things that I would like to offer. So the first is I learned recently, in the last few months, that the district actually has an environmental literacy plan, which spans things like the Healthy Schools Act, in addition to some of the activities like Your School Should Be Recycling. And I learned that because I don't think anybody raised their hand to be on that committee, so I ended up on that committee. And have went to all of maybe 2 meetings. So what I did was emailed the person at OSSE who's responsible for that to start a connection, because that's a process that's ongoing. And they're thinking about some of these things now. I do know that the Master Facilities Plan, they have given more time. It's not a bunch more time, but instead of the plan being delivered in December, the council has extended it to being delivered in March. And so, again, not a bunch more time, but I want you to know what some of the opportunities are to expand this conversation. And then third, around the electrification of buses. That is actually something that is actively happening, especially with OSSE. And there's a group called the Greater Washington Regional Clean Cities, I believe is what they are called, that's been looking for funding and support around this. Also happy to make that connection. I'm telling you this with my time because I will forget. So thank you for coming before us this evening. And I'm looking forward to moving on to the next panel of witnesses, which I will call because Director Butler has stepped out. Thank you. All right, so next up we have Malcolm Leskowski. Pardon me if that is incorrect. Dahlia Anderson. All right, I see some movement. Yeslin Iraheta. No, okay. Sadie Greenhall. I see some movement. Rhea Stockherd. And Tara Roberts. All right, we have our next 5. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the school board. My name is Malcolm Leskowski, and I'm a student at School Without Walls High School and a member of the School Without Walls Sunrise Hub. Our goal is to pass the Green New Deal for schools.
I'm only going to interrupt you first because the time is not started, but second because we can't hear you, and we want to.
Good evening, members of the school board. My name is Malcolm Leskowski, and I am a student at School Without Walls. and a member of the School Without Walls Sunrise Hub. Our goal is to pass the Green New Deals for schools in the district. This visionary policy aims to transform our schools in a way that allows us to properly face the devastating climate crisis. As previously stated, there are many aspects to this comprehensive plan that can help students and young adults entering the workforce. While this might seem like a lot that we are asking, it is important to note the urgency of the climate crisis and how drastic action is required to protect our future. While most of my life has been spent relatively comfortably here in DC in regards to climate change, I've noticed that's changed recently. The city has been much hotter and for so much longer. Even in November, we've been able to go outside without a jacket. Changing weather patterns have left the city without any snowfall these past couple of years, which besides being no fun, also affects ecosystems that are fine-tuned to react to the cold and snow. I've even felt the effects of climate change in more ways than just the climate itself, with things like dangerous air quality brought on by increasingly powerful wildfires. The Green New Deal for schools would allow for students to not only get a better understanding of why their hometown has changed so much, but also protection in the event of extreme weather. I want to feel safe at school during a time where it might not be so safe outside, with air conditioning, air filters, and more. Reading about the climate crisis and how it has impacted millions of people on the other side of the world is one thing, but seeing its effects in my own backyard is terrifying. This is why it's imperative that the comprehensive policies the Green New Deal for School preaches are passed in DC, the city that constantly amazes me with its drive to do the right thing before it's too late. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Dahlia Anderson, and I'm a student at School Without Walls. I'm also a member of the School Without Walls Sunrise Hub. I'm here, as you might have guessed, to show our and ask for your support of the Green New Deal for schools. Passing the Green New Deal for schools will help my generation and the ones to come. Too often, we see stories in the news of natural disasters all over the world. People are worried. I'm worried. All of us are afraid. However, there's no point in fear without action. The Green New Deal for schools is that action. It's the safety net for our and future DC generations. It's our plan. For a long time in schools, science has been my favorite subject. I've loved learning how animals interact with one another, the different types of plants, the connections between a cause and effect, and so on and so forth. More recently, I've come to love thinking and brainstorming about how cities, people, and nature can work together to create the sustainable future that we all need and deserve. DC has been an amazing place to grow up while thinking about this because of how many trees and plants it has. However, there are further steps needed to make DC and DCPS schools sustainable. I believe that the Green New Deal for schools will help accomplish this. Not only will it expand the science curriculum at DCPS schools, but it will also incorporate green infrastructure into our schools. Additionally, it will allow me and others with similar goals a pathway to the jobs we want later in life. These are all things that to me are incredibly important. In conclusion, the Green New Deal for schools is absolutely necessary, as it will provide a safety net for the students of DC against the climate crisis. I believe that with the steps proposed by the Green New Deal for schools, we can fight this crisis by pushing aside our fear and coming together. Thank you for listening.
Good evening, members of the DC School Board. My name is Sadie Greenhouse. I'm a student at School Without Walls and a participant of the School Without Walls hub of the Sunrise Movement. I'm here to urge you all to support the Green New Deal for Schools resolution. The Green New Deal for Schools is important to me because I would like to learn more about the climate crisis and what we can do to prevent it from worsening. I can only learn about climate change if we have an honest curriculum about it, which is a demand included in the Green New Deal for Schools. A sincere curriculum about climate change will allow the teachers in DC to raise up the younger generations and teach them how to combat the climate crisis, which will ultimately be left in their hands. This will prepare the younger generations in DC to step up and fight climate change in an appropriate, educated, and organized manner. Additionally, I used to get school lunch, but it wasn't healthy or free. Every day, it would be a different form of chicken, or for vegetarians like me, a form of slimy, tasteless, fake chicken. Having a non-healthy school lunch lowered my energy and caused me to be hungry for the rest of the day. Providing free and healthy school lunches is another demand included in the Green New Deal for schools, one that would greatly impact every student at DC schools. According to the District of Columbia School Meal Report by DC Hunger Solutions, more than 2,200 low-income students in DC will benefit from a free and healthy school lunch, and 60% of the students who are eligible for free school meals participated in their free lunch programs. More than 2,200 low-income students need your help in providing and continuing to provide free and healthy school lunches. And that's only a portion of the more than 96,000 students attending public and charter schools in DC who could benefit from free and healthy school lunches. In closing, as students in DC, we are the next generation responsible for stopping the climate crisis. The Green New Deal for schools is a step to ensuring the DC school system is able to stand strong against the climate crisis, a step that is now in your hands. I urge you, please, approve the Green New Deal for Schools resolution and help every DC student. Thank you and have a great day.
My name is Rhea Stockard. I'm a student at School Without Walls and a member of the Sunrise Hub. I'm here to voice my support and encourage yours for the Green New Deal for Schools resolution. If approved, this resolution will expand climate education across the U.S. to ensure that every student receives quality, science-based lessons about environmental sustainability. I've always been extremely fascinated with wildlife. My charter school fostered this love and encouraged my dreams of working with animals and becoming a zoologist. I was lucky enough to be at a school that provided me with that opportunity, and lucky to be at a school that provided me with climate and environmental education, which is something that I know most students are not afforded. But my privilege should be universal. What about all the public school students who are not given the chance to experience this? A Green New Deal for schools would mean that more students are able to experience the support and resources I've been given throughout my education so far. The resolution also creates pathways to green jobs. One of my dreams is to undertake conservation work in the deep jungles and vast savannas because it would help our environment. But we can turn almost every job into a green job if we understand the consequences of our actions on the environment. We need to be considering the environment in any kind of work we do, and that starts with education. Green jobs can't materialize unless we have public school systems that teach science-based information about the changing climate of our world. But that's hard to do when only 21% of teachers across North America feel very informed about climate change, and most don't know how they're supposed to teach it. The teachers at my charter school were the ones who encouraged class dialogues about climate change and global warming, ones that allowed us to think of solutions and to share our experiences. Since I've been at a public high school, that is no longer the case. This is partially what has led me here today. In addition to hearing about my friends whose families in other countries have been increasingly affected by more frequent hurricanes, and having my own experiences with my asthma, which is worsening due to the smog. Our school systems should be creating change makers who have empathy for others in the world around them. It's easy for students and educators alike to forget that school is for learning and having fun when you're busy churning out students into an unsustainable workforce. A Green New Deal for schools would mean that our education grounds us in the interconnectedness of life and a sustainable life, and sets us up for a path for a livable future.
Good evening, members of the Good evening, members of the board. My name is Tara Roberts, and I am a part of the School That Well Sunrise Hub. Urban legend has it that if you put a frog in a pot of boiling water, it will leap out. But if you put a frog in a pot of room temperature water and gradually heat it, the frog will remain in the water until it boils to death. The frog will spend its final moments saying, "Oh, it's only a little bit hotter. I don't need to get out yet." This is the story I was told when I first started learning about climate change. I was maybe 6, but even then I understood that we are the frog. As I've grown up, it's become harder to shy away from that truth. Every time climate change is called a hoax, every time we reach our new record-breaking heat, and every time our sky turns to smoke-filled red, the water figuratively and literally gets hotter. In DC this summer, we experienced days upon days of heat emergencies. That number is only expected to grow. Rainstorms are only going to get more frequent, and the Potomac will only continue to rise. But for every tragedy, every temperature increase, we will continue to sit here and say that it's only a little bit hotter, only a little bit closer to an uninhabitable planet. Climate change has no singular solution. It takes individual efforts, but it also takes the people in power to make the changes to the way our world works. Right now, those people are you. On behalf of not only myself, but on behalf of every DCPS public and charter school student, I ask that you support the Green New Deals for School resolution. I ask so we can have locally sourced meals, renewable energy in schools, climate change education, and more, all so that we are equipped to make the changes our planet needs. The choice is yours. Will we have to spend our final last minutes hoping that it's only a little bit hotter, or will you help us take the leap? Thank you.
Thank you all for your testimonies. We will now move for a round of panel questions, starting with our student members. Representative Kelly.
Okay, so thank you for the testimony. My first question is, so how do you propose we can get more youth involved in green works, and how can we make sure future generations carry on the work that you're doing?
I think a big part of this and making sure the youth is involved would be having climate education in schools, because that's what makes people aware about this issue. And that's the reason I'm here today, because in my charter school, I was able to have this education, which made me aware. And so if that was available to other students, I'm sure that it would be better and more people would be more aware about climate change.
Representative via Florida.
I just want to thank you all for your testimonies. It's really refreshing to hear my peers talk about climate change and actionable steps to helping future generations and our future. Because a lot of times when I talk about climate change with people, it's undercut by a lot of hopelessness and there's hopelessness. So I just want to thank y'all for coming here as a group to advocate. Yeah.
Representative Washington.
Hi, I also want to thank you all for coming out and advocating. Again, this is really big, and it is really nice to see so many students so dedicated to a cause. I also definitely look forward to seeing you all at future meetings and hearing more of what you guys have to say. I don't have any questions, but thank you again for coming out tonight.
Representative Yarkin.
Hi. Yeah, again, like everyone else, nice to see you guys, School Without Walls, and thank you for your testimony. I don't have any questions, but I do think that, once you get past the pretty progressive and supportive school board to the more practical mayor's office, where you might start to run into a couple more issues. And I would highly recommend talking to Representative Goulet, who has been working on budgets since before I was born. You guys were born as well. And he can probably, I assume he'll help you work out some of the more complicated fiscal aspects that could prove to be a real barrier to what you guys want to do. But yeah, thank you.
Well, okay. Representative Patterson.
I am really appreciating coming after my colleague. Every comment has been really good, so thank you. With that being said, in all seriousness, I think I've been on this for going into my third year, and I've never seen so many students come here and articulate what they really would like to see happen. This is such a welcome thing to see and experience. I'm so happy that you guys have come. I've enjoyed every single one of you guys' testimony. I don't have a question at this particular time, but I just want to say that I am so persuaded by what you've talked about, each and every one of your stories, including the frog story. I appreciate that because I can visualize it in my head. But just really appreciate how you guys have come here to advocate, to be that voice. And I just look forward to you guys expanding this to every single school that we have in the District of Columbia to build that capacity. I look forward to reaching my child's school, who he attends up Duke Ellington. So I just look forward to supporting you guys. So thank you for just being here and showing up the way that you have. Thank you.
Representative Best.
Yeah, no, I don't have any questions for you, but the same thing that I was telling the other group, I am incredibly inspired. Thank you for taking your time to write your testimonies and then come here and present. And as Dr. Patterson said so eloquently, you all presented, you know, why you want this, and the future is yours. And so I know exactly why this makes so much sense, and it's something that's such a big issue for you. And so once again look forward to just diving into the resolution that you're proposing, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Goulet.
Thank you. And I definitely want to also thank my colleague for pointing out my age, and hopefully with age comes wisdom. And with wisdom, I would like to just say this is extremely exciting, what you put forward today. You know, I was able to look up the plan. They have the plan up online, and it's really inspirational. It's exciting, and it's something that we need to get done here in DC. I mean, we're the nation's capital, so if we're going to set the standard, it should be here. We should have, you know, at every one of our schools, we should look to start trying to retrofit these buildings, you know, get them electrified. And, you know, we need to start obviously with the ones that haven't gotten the modernizations yet to be able to make sure that we improve those schools. But then we should try to complete them. And I think this is the time to try to do it. You bring in a real energy here today. So to be able to, you know, connect with what usually only comes around every 5 to 10 years with this master facilities plan, I feel like it's meant to be, that, you know, we try to get hold of that and infuse it with what you're trying to get done here. And, you know, I'll joke for a second. I've been sparring with the Sunrise movement on social media, and I can admit when I'm wrong. And you guys are awesome. Like, this is really exciting. And I'm just truly floored by how great this plan is. And I'm just looking forward to working with you all to get it done. And I know some people that I worked with during my Ward 3 campaign who are really on the electrification issue. And I'd love to connect you with them because they would love to, you know, probably partner with, you know, this energy to try to get this done here in DC. So thank you all for coming today, and I look forward deeply to working with you on this issue as we move forward and we consider it here at the board. So thanks so much.
Representative Henderson.
Thank you all over here. So your testimony has prompted some questions in my mind, but they're not questions that I expect you to like know the answers to already, or necessarily that it's your job to answer. But I'm wondering what you would think if you were to look at DC's current academic standards as they relate to climate change. If you think, if you looked at them, how you would find them. So some of your resolution points out like some gaps in other jurisdictions. I wonder if you would find the same in DC. I'm just not sure. And then another question along the lines of modernization. I know that DCPS has begun to incorporate green elements in a lot of the newer schools that they've built. And I'm wondering, you know, if you were to evaluate working backwards, at what point did they start like doing well in incorporating eco-friendly features, and where we would need to go back and retrofit. So just a couple thoughts. If you have a response, happy to hear it now, but just those are some things that you made me think of.
So you had two questions. Your first one was obviously what are we looking at for the climate education currently, and what amendments would we have to that. And from my understanding, being a DCPS student, we don't get talked to about climate change as much as, hey kids, recycle, and then we promptly don't. So I think actually implementing that further than just, hey kids, recycle, having us first of all recycle, and then teaching us kind of what climate change really is, how it impacts us, how it impacts places that we're going to move, because I know we're all going to college soon, going to like trade school, wherever else we go. Understanding that. And then you also said that some schools are moving towards like the more modernization. But as far as I know, only 2 schools actually have solar panels. And they're not schools that, from my understanding, were renovated recently. I'll give an example. Banneker was just renovated, and they do not have solar panels. And obviously that was a very big renovation, so that might not have been in budget. But as we do kind of focus on renovating more schools, add that to the budget, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. It would be interesting to do like an inventory of which buildings do you have. Do you count Dunbar as one of them? Because I know they do. And there are other elements like geothermal heating. Are there other features that you think are especially important besides solar?
Like air filtration systems that actually work, because I know that, especially with people who have like breathing conditions like asthma like me, it's increasingly like difficult to go to school.
Thank you. Representative Reed.
Thank you to the panel. And I think I might know something that is younger than you, and that's our new DC State social studies standards, which can be an action item for you because there is information related to climate change in there. And because we already approved them, OSSI will be needing support with like developing materials for schools and teachers. And I know primarily we're going to get teachers together, but it's just an opportunity to possibly loop in students. And you have the Action Civics component, which is in 8th grade. So you get your middle school counterparts to, and hopefully younger, to participate. So that's the way you can think about also expanding your advocacy by maybe taking an active role in some of that development of materials. Thank you for your time.
Representative Williams.
Yeah, I suppose I'll build off of where Representative Reed kind of left off, because I was excited to hear about, the movement building across DC, right, and finding connections to other schools. And I think surveys might be an easy way to be able to do that, and then being able to make sure that we have representation from all 8 wards and from students in all 8 wards, and then being able to use that at the council, right? I think as Representative Goulet said, we are in the process of making these decisions comprehensively with the master facilities plan, but I'm not confident that the priorities of clean energy and climate justice are leading that plan right now, right? And so there is a real opportunity to be able to weigh in. And I appreciate you all organizing it and being here today. The metaphor and with the frog is gonna stay with me. And then I was just curious because it is such a concern that there isn't climate justice and being taught in schools systematically. What was the charter school that you felt like did it well when you were there?
I went to Inspired Teaching Public Charter School,
Okay.
and I got a lot of climate education there. Like most of our science curriculum was embedded with climate education. So.
Awesome, and I think that's great, and it shouldn't just be that you went to a school or had a teacher that really valued it. It should be across the board. So I'm interested to see how we can do that more structurally in DC.
Representative Chang.
Thank you. My mind, like Representative Henderson, also goes tactical and thinking about all the different ways that each of you can help put this together and make it happen, right? The research that might go behind this, the surveying, as Representative Williams named, that will really help build the foundations for us to be able to move this forward, and would love to follow up on the specific tactical questions. But I just want to create a little bit more space in the 2 minutes and 30 seconds left, if there's anything that any of the panelists would like to add. Thank you.
Vice President O'Leary.
I don't know if you've noticed the climate change in this room, but if you notice what you're looking at up on this panel, they didn't have their coats on earlier. So I have a couple of questions. We have, as Representative Patterson mentioned, we have some schools all over the city that are in need of repair. They're very old. Some of them are over 100 years old, and they're on track to be fixed in 3 or 4 more years. I would challenge your group. How many are in your group? because you said there are more people than I think 17 I counted or something. So how many, not in the room, there are other people at school at Walls, right? So how many? 20? Okay, 30 people. I challenge y'all to split yourselves up into groups of 5 or something like that and adopt 5 schools that really need support and start challenging the city council in their hearings or whatever, all right? I know that you think that this is televised all over the world or whatever tonight, and you made your debut on television or anything like that, but in order for anything to change, is voices need to be raised, and that it needs to happen over and over and over again. You can't give up on it. You've got a great opportunity to take care of my children, because I don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about it, but my oldest child is 53 and my youngest is 25, and I worry about when I leave what the world is going to be like 20 years after I leave. And y'all will just be, in your 30s or something like that. But, so, this is a challenge for you. It's not well, we're all got the same shirts and stuff like that and things like that. This is something that is life-changing for the entire world. And I had one other thing. Oh, I know. Toni Morrison, in my favorite book, Song of Solomon, there's a long speech by a farm that talks about the making dead, the first making dead. And the last thing it says is, pass it on. And that's your job, to pass it on.
President Thompson.
So I have no questions because you all have been super clear. I already gave some of my follow-up items. And as I'm listening to you all and I'm thinking about all the follow-up items I can give, all the homework my colleagues have given you, and honestly how disjointed our government is, I both want you to do all of those things, and I'll commit to helping you work through a plan on this. We did a set of governance recommendations earlier in my tenure on the board, and one of the things we saw was facilities was a bit all over the place. And so there's not really one place to go. You can't just go to the council. You can't just come talk to us about the standards around what you learn. You can't just go to DGS. You got to go all the different places. And so I appreciate you all putting your thoughts into a resolution, but I think we kind of need a plan for how to get that actualized. As Representative Yarkin pointed out, these are some lofty things. So let's work on that. I will hold you to your commitment of coming back to visit us next month, because I think that's a way to keep us both accountable and to keep us both paying attention to this. But I think we need to come up with a plan in addition to a resolution. Okay? So those will be my comments. I don't know if this panel had any final comments since I go last before we go to the next panel.
I don't know. I just want to make sure. I don't know. This might be ridiculous, but the Sunrise Movement is a nationwide movement. So not only are we hoping to, expand it here, but as it grows across the country, we're hoping that'll affect decisions that happen here. And I think there was a question earlier about who we should look to as role models for when adapting this resolution. I think not looking to role models as in who has already adapted this, but how other states are planning to adapt the resolution, or how other school boards or how other states are planning to tailor and adopt this resolution, so that we can try to do the same thing for DC.
All right, not ridiculous. Any other thoughts that are also not ridiculous? All right, well, thank you all for your time.
Thank you all for being public witnesses. We will now call our next panel of witnesses. Anika Smith. Charlotte Mendelson. Zoe Fisher. Lizzie Weems. Riley Deliaco. Kiana Cole. Takia Shire. Latia Loring. We will start with Ms. Smith and work our way down.
Okay. Good evening, board members. I am Annika Smith, and I'm also a student at School Without Walls, a part of the Sunrise Hub movement. I'm here to ask you to support the Green New Deal for Schools resolution. The Green New Deal for Schools will allow students like me and students completely different from me to have a guaranteed free and nutritious lunch. Going to a magnet school in a city results in students from every ward in DC to gather in the same place. Although magnet schools do serve their purpose, the scattered lives of students result in a lack of historical and personal connection between students and staff. The Green New Deal for Schools would allow for the multitude of different backgrounds to receive equitable support for everyone through features of ensured, safe, healthy, and free lunches for everyone that might not be accessible otherwise. At-risk students can be associated with low income, homelessness, and inaccessibility to necessities. According to DCPS profiles, School Without Walls has a 2% at-risk, or holds 2% at-risk students, about 12 of 160 students. Even though this number may seem minuscule, every student deserves to eat a nutritional lunch. However, other schools in the district, such as Anacostia High School, contain 85% at-risk students, which is over 270 students in total. In addition, OSSI states as of 2022, almost half of DCPS students identify as at risk. This represents the disproportionate rate of at-risk students across the district. In comparison, Roots for Life explains of the 49 full grocery stores in DC, only 3 are located in Ward 7 and 8, both predominantly black neighborhoods east of the Anacostia River. These numbers aren't just bar graphs, but students across our district proving the connection between food deserts and students' lack of inaccessibility to food. These discrepancies are important to me because I'm a huge advocate for food insecurity, and Green New Deal for Schools is something that can help people who are suffering from it. Thank you for your consideration. Good evening, board members. I'm Charlotte Mendelson, a student at School Without Walls. I'm also a member of the Sunrise Hub at my school. The Green New Deal for Schools is a resolution that has the power to transform our schools and students. Its 5 demands are very important to me. I was born in DC, and I've lived here my entire life. I live in close proximity to the zoo, and when I was younger, I would visit the zoo every day. I love seeing the different animals and learning about them. Since I was little, I've cared. I've cared about why a cheetah has spots. I've cared about how the animals at the zoo were feeling, whether they looked happy or sad. I've cared about how we can protect them. I still do. I still visit the zoo regularly, and I continue to ask questions and learn more about the different species that live there. I now recognize how lucky I am to have grown up where I did. I was able to learn about these animals and develop a bond with them and the rest of the natural world, all within living in a city. Right now, not everyone in DC has these opportunities. With the Green New Deal for Schools, every student will be able to learn about what's happening to the animals, familiar and foreign to them. Melting ice caps, warming seas, deforestation, hunting, the list of reasons animals are driven to extinct goes on. Animals aren't the only ones feeling the effects of climate change. I've felt them too. I've watched the Potomac flood devastating the cherry trees on the National Mall. I've felt our winters become hotter and seen less and less snow. I've watched my weather app forecast drought and record-breaking heat. We are feeling the effects, and it will only get worse. Students in schools need to be educated about what's happening within our city and our world. As Nelson Mandela stated, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. By supporting the Green New Deals for schools, you are providing DC students with the tools and education they need to make a difference in the world. The future of DC schools and students is in your hands.
Good evening, board members, and thank you for hearing what we have to say. I'm Zoe Fisher, a School Without Walls high school student and a co-leader of our Sunrise Hub. The climate crisis has been a part of my life since I can remember. I grew up in California where my family, friends, and neighbors faced relentless wildfires, mudslides, droughts, and seemingly limitless climate disasters. In elementary school, during wildfire season, we had recess indoors because it was too dangerous to play outside. Last spring, when wildfire smoke from Canada entered my high school's building, I felt nostalgic for my memories in California instead of feeling unnerved like my peers. This is not the future we want for students in DC. Therefore, I've long been aware that our resources, along with our time to preserve them, are limited. When I came to DC, it was apparent that the climate crisis here is much more veiled than in places like California. Elementary schoolers here, luckily, aren't being lectured about preserving water, running from ruthless wildfires, or abandoning their childhood homes because of irreparable damage from mudslides. That is what makes our position all the more exciting. We have started to see the consequences of the climate crisis reaching our beloved city, from rising water levels in the Potomac and the tidal basin, to smoke from Canadian wildfires, to increasing heat and regular flooding. Even though these effects are not as extreme as what I faced in California, the necessity for schools to acknowledge what is yet to come must be done today. In DC, we have the chance to take action before it is too late. We get to set the tone for the nation and prove that this crisis deserves our attention, even if it is not already in our faces. I believe there is no way to do that better than in our schools, the epicenters for learning, living, and growing. The classes I took in California that taught me about the climate crisis and what we can do to stop it truly changed my life. They gave me hope for a future in a world that oftentimes seems hopeless. This resolution will be a step toward a safer, more knowledgeable, and healthier student body, which is the standard DC public schools should be looking for. Again, I would like to articulate what we're asking of you. To consider this drafted resolution at the next working session and to see if the committees would be open to taking it on to move through the formal resolution process. And most importantly, please consider pledging to prioritize the demands of the Green New Deal for schools. We are happy to address questions or concerns you may have, and we look forward to working with you and making these ideas a reality. We will be here after adjournment, and we will be more than happy to talk with you about any other questions or one-on-one conversations that you'd like to have to make a plan for how we can work with you in the future. And we printed out our pledges so you could sign them today if you're ready to do that. And so yes, thank you for your time and your consideration.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Latanya Loring. I come here today on behalf of the Outstanding Parent Advocacy Group, PAVE. I am a constituent resident advocate of the Great Ward 8. I'm a parent, I'm an aspiring educator, and I'm someone who enjoys talking about the importance of getting others excited about the joys and how powerful financial literacy is in the lives of children. A lot of what I had prepared to talk about has already been stated, so I'm not going to take for the sake of not being redundant,
I just want to speak about a few things that resonates with me in my testimony. Financial literacy, when I think about financial literacy, I think about, well, just the word literacy alone. It incorporates seeing words, deciphering them, understanding, and comprehending. That's the same thing when you want to talk about financial literacy. A lot of families are going through things that I think would not be an issue for them if they were exposed to information about the importance of financial literacy. I'm also excited about not just providing that type of support to students, but I'm excited about the holistic approach. If we can not only get children excited about understanding how money works, understanding about wealth, and understanding that even though they come from low income experiences, or that they come from an area where they're probably not expected to make a lot of money or be financially sound, that they have the ability to change that. They can change that not only for themselves, but they can also provide a better future for their family. And so if we can have more conversations about that in school, so far as, I remember graduating from school and going to college and being harassed by credit card companies. And it took me years to dig myself out of that ditch. And I felt like if I was given the opportunity to talk more about that in school, I would have been better prepared to make better decisions. So, sorry. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, members of the DC State Board of Education. My name is Riley Danelko. I'm a senior policy analyst at DC Action, which is home of the DC Out of School Time Coalition. And I'm here tonight to talk to you about the importance of universal out of school time opportunities for young people in DC, and to encourage the Board of Education to leverage its role of providing policy leadership, advocacy, and oversight to help the district achieve this goal. OST opportunities, including after school and summer programs, are critical for young people's growth and development. How youth spend their time outside of the classroom can and does dramatically impact their social and emotional well-being, their academic outcomes, and their college and career readiness, along with community safety. But in DC, access to OST programs is inadequate and inequitable, and funding for OST is far below where it should be to allow all youth to participate. It's time for the district to commit to ensuring universal access to OST for our youth by creating safe and joyful spaces outside of the classroom for every youth. In DC, Black youth in particular face barriers to accessing OST programs due to decades of discrimination. Disinvestment linked to structural racism, as shown by data in the DC Policy Center's 2023 Needs Assessment, highlights the fact that in wards 7 and 8, where the vast majority of youth are Black, are home to the highest populations of students who do not have access to OST. However, access to OST across the district is inadequate in all 8 wards. As the district builds toward universal OST, we must center the needs of Black and Brown youth who have disproportionately been excluded from these crucial opportunities. The district must also, as we work toward this, address common barriers to accessing programs, such as access to reliable transportation and making programs more inclusive and welcoming to youth with special needs. As I referenced, the DC Policy Center did a really important study this year assessing the needs for out-of-school times across the district, which I encourage all of you to read. But one of the things that really stands out in that is that 53,000 students are missing out on after-school programs in DC, and 57,000 students are missing out on summer programs. We cannot continue to deny these opportunities to any of the district's young people. Achieving universal out-of-school time is in alignment with the board's mission to ensure that every student is valued and learns the skills and knowledge necessary to become informed, competent, and contributing global citizens. On behalf of DC Action and the OST Coalition, we ask for your support and advocacy to help DC obtain and coordinate the funding, policy change, and capacity building resources we need to reach universal OST. Thanks for your time, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you all for your testimony. We will now go to a round of member questions, starting with our student members. Representative Kelly.
Thank you all for your testimony. My question is, how should we go about proposing safe and compromisable programs for students after school?
Yeah, so I think probably one of the most important, I would say, two of the most important things that we should do to achieve more OST opportunities and after-school programs for youth. First is we just need to put more public dollars toward funding these programs. There's a lot of really great organizations out there doing after-school programs and ready to enroll more young people in them, but they just need the funding to do it. The second thing is, I think, really engaging young people and parents in particular in what this looks like. If DC does embark on something like achieving universal after school, to do it right, it really needs to be informed by making sure that the programs are what students and parents actually want and need. So those are just two of the things that I would say we should do to start. Thanks for your question.
So where do you propose we get the funding from?
That's always the question, the multi-million-dollar question. There's not all of the funding for out-of-school time programs has to come from public sources. In DC, there's a really diverse set of funding that funds OST programs, including local dollars, but also philanthropic funding. So, as we build toward this system, we do need to raise new revenue in the district, and we also need to coordinate better between those local dollars and the philanthropic dollars to make sure that we're kind of filling the gaps and creating a really strong and comprehensive funding structure. Great question, thanks.
Thank you.
Representative Villaflor.
Yeah, thank you all for your testimonies. I just wanted to speak on this on the out of school programs, and I think that you spoke on how you want student input would be very useful. I think the SAC could be really useful in getting some of that input. I was talking to Representative Goulet earlier about getting student input on what out-of-school activities would be through the SAC, especially with the kind of change in what's popular with esports opposed to physical sports, and that I was wondering if you had any other ideas on how we could get student input and family input onto what would be convenient for students and families for out-of-school programs.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'd love to hear some of the ideas that the SAC has come up with. But yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways that we could do this. The DC OST office is legally mandated to do a needs assessment every year, where some of the statistics that I just cited, they look at where the gaps are in OST participation and access. So if we added an element to that requires them to hold focus groups or survey families to get their input on what programs they need and maybe what some of the barriers are to not enrolling in a program or not being able to participate. That's one way to do it. And I think there's also a lot of great, student advocacy groups out there and parent advocacy groups like PAVE that we should be really tapping into and kind of working together to get as much family and youth input as possible.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Representative Washington.
Thank you all for your testimonies. I had a question on financial literacy. I was wondering how you think we can get students excited about learning about financial literacy, or like methods that you've seen that have worked the best in getting kids to want to learn about it or want to talk about it outside of the class.
Yeah, so I think it has to start with just getting people excited about understanding the benefits and how it's going to help them. Okay. There's a lot of anxiety, more so I have observed, with students and young people in from lower income communities. And so right now, most of the strategies or skills that they use are things that they learn from growing up. And so if you can get them to understand how it's going to benefit them in their lives, the chronic absenteeism issue that we have, I think, stems from, when I talk to young people, they just feel like a lot of programs are being designed by other entities who really don't understand the experience and the challenges that they face. And so it's like, if you didn't grow up struggling like I did, or if you didn't, instead of judging the skills that I use, we know that there are things that I can do better. You know how most of us are harassed by predatory lending practices, in the lower income communities. You have the tax places that offer you advanced refund options, and you instead of just saving money or understand, you don't see it's the struggle with them understanding convenience versus longevity. So another thing is presenting the content in a way that grasps their attention. You have to get creative with it. What I'm excited to do with young children is field trips, trips to the grocery store. So fractions, it lowers the anxiety of grasping the content, and it becomes more, it's like more an application skill. So you understand that it's not me just needing to learn how to solve these math equations for the sake of passing a test or being judged. You understand that I need to know fractions, I need to know percentages, so if I'm shopping, I know I'm getting the right discount, and that's something that I think is going to get kids excited about first coming back to school, then sitting in a classroom and getting excited about learning about finances. So it has to be creative, it has to be unorthodox, and something that's going to grasp their attention, because a lot of young people say that they're bored, so that's a challenge in itself.
Thank you very much.
Representative Yarkin.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for testimony, guys, again. I have a question about the OST. As a student at a school with plenty of OST and after-school programs, and as a student who doesn't really attend many of these programs, it seems to me that the issue is less of increasing the number and the funding of the programs, and instead, like to echo Representative Villaflor's statement, is to tap into the students and figure out what excites them and what engages them. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on figuring out what makes kids excited to come to these programs, because I think an obstinate middle schooler or high schooler might not be so inclined to just show up to a program. They need to be really excited about it.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I think, in addition to some of the comments that I mentioned earlier, I think there has been probably a lack of engagement among the offices that are funding and administering these programs, to figure out whether or not they're actually meeting the needs of young people. I mean, there are some student surveys that that are administered to certain locally funded programs. And I don't know if those surveys are publicly released, but I think looking at those surveys that actually are answered by students to see, like, is this program actually meeting their needs and interests? And if we could look through those and identify areas where, like, okay, this could make this program more engaging or more appealing to young people. But I think, yeah, there's definitely a need for us to think about ways we can do surveys or focus groups or have a hearing where we can just hear what young people are actually interested in doing. So I'd love to talk with all of you guys about what we can do to get more programs that feel like they're actually worth coming to.
Yeah, I mean, that's good to hear that you guys are making outreach. I would plug the Student Advisory Committee. We'd love to have you if you want to send one of the representatives an email. Our next meeting is on December 11th, and we'd love to give our feedback on what might be engaging to students.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Patterson.
Thank you. I'm going to start with Ms. Loring. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for bringing that parent voice in here that needs to be part of this when we're talking about financial literacy. And every single point that you hit on that I was down here writing furiously from just talking about the predatory lending that is so much part of the African American experience, especially in marginalized communities that's underserved, how they victimize individuals that go through that, and how at the earliest stages we need to be learning about what that is and what it isn't, and how a decision can affect you for the rest of your life. I just appreciate you bringing that parent voice. I think a lot of times that's missing. We bring in experts and things like that, but we don't talk to parents that work with our children every single day. They send them out and hope that they get what they're supposed to get at school, but we really know what's happening every day in their lives and how they're making decisions. So thank you so much for bringing that parent passion into this. On the issue of out-of-school time activities, I hear you about the universal having it, and I agree with that. The problem I have a lot of times is that the big inequities. I'm zoned for Turner Elementary School, okay? I have school-age children. They attended Ludlow Taylor, which is in Ward 6. The inequity of what was offered at both of those schools, and as parents, as me and my wife looked at that, was just huge. Right now we're in the midst of doing the report card. And I don't think a lot of people understand how, as parents, we look at a lot of things on a report card and we argue about some of the scores and all these things like that. But parents want to know what a school is going to offer them for their child in the way of activities that's going to enrich their lives. They want rigor in academics, but they also want programs that's going to enrich their lives and make them whole students. And as I say that, I'm kind of asking you, as we consider this universal out-of-school time, how do we address the inequities that are part of the system that doesn't provide those same opportunities in Southeast, where I live, as they do in Capitol Hill? And I know I left you just a few seconds.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up a really good point about quality of programming. So I think whatever the district pursues, which I hope we do, as far as pursuing universal OST, I think quality needs to be like a top line item, and DC's OST office, if they're the ones to kind of administer this, needs to be ensuring that they are constantly assessing quality and ensuring that's part of every program, every new program that's created, or improving the quality of existing programs. So thanks for asking.
Thank you.
Representative Best.
Thank you. So I want to talk on the issue of out-of-school time. I believe that this is a much bigger issue than we actually give it credit for and think about. It is something that is directly tied to academics, safety, as well as student satisfaction. As I think back to my time when I was your age, I see one of my classmates in the back, and I got good grades because I wanted to participate in those out of school time activities, whether it was the play or football and other things. Like that's what made me love school. That's what I remember when I think about school. I don't remember, my algebra class, right? So my question, well, not even my question, that one other thing, I also believe that when our school days end before our work days end, then that's also bad for our communities, our students, and our families as well, especially when we think about supervision. So the question is, what infrastructure and resources are required to implement universal out-of-school time effectively? And then how could we start to address some of those challenges, such as human resources and capacity as well?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think aside from the funding, because that's probably going to be one of the biggest things, but yeah, I think there needs to be a lot of coordination among district agencies. Like, for example, we have an Office of Out of School Time, but that's kind of one piece of the pie. We also have the Department of Parks and Recreation that offers certain programs and just opportunities and places for young people to go after school. So as we're kind of looking at what the landscape is across the district, making sure that like these different agencies are talking to each other and communicating about what gaps there might be, so that we're not kind of doubling down where we don't need to be and leaving gaps in other places. So I would say that's another thing that we'd love to see more of, and the OST office should be the one kind of leading those efforts and bringing those agencies together, including OSSE, because OSSE holds one of the biggest pots of public funding for OST. So they need to be part of the conversation too. So I would say better coordination answers your question.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Representative Goulet.
Oh, thank you. So I'll sign the pledge enthusiastically tonight. And let's sit down and strategize about how we get there. I think what you'll want to do is figure out what deliverable you want for each one of your goals. And then you've got a whole process where you want to attend the mayor's budget town halls, show up, en masse for those, and attend council hearings and get commitments from these folks. And you can get this done within the year. I really do think you can. I'm really excited about, financial literacy. I appreciate your expertise and perspective on that today. And, we'll be considering that soon. And then out of school time, I put together just a rough draft of a resolution on this for universal free out of school time. I mean, to me, I was able to be fortunate enough to be Vince Gray's budget director on the council when we did universal pre-K 3 and 4. And I thought it made such a difference. And I think right now, where we are in the city with the issues of truancy, with the issues of public safety with our youth, this is a game changer if we can do this with free out of school time, universal throughout the city. Starting, I think, in areas where you see the greatest need, the greatest trauma, the greatest violence. And, going to the students themselves and hearing what they want, I think is really critically important, because it'll be hopefully that spark that gets the child interested in staying in school, keeping their grades up. And it may not even have an educational component to it. It may be more about just, building camaraderie, making friends, and then having a place to go to sometimes during the day when you have a family setting that is, not necessarily positive. You have that one positive role model or that spark. So I'd love to, if we can, connect after this. I'd like to get the resolution introduced for the next working session, because what I'd like to see is us get ahead of the budget process on this. And, with the pre-K 3 and 4, Vince, who was chairman at the time, funded that during the Great Recession. So, it can be done. You just got to put it as the top priority. And I think where we are right now with the issues we're seeing with the trauma and the violence with our youth right now, these aren't bad kids. They're kids who right now, don't know what else to do. And I think this is the path to getting them connected to positive things that will keep them, out of trouble. So sorry, only after 30 seconds, but I hope to connect with you afterwards and get that resolution introduced for the next working session so we can approve it, here next month, if that works.
Yeah, Thanks. I look forward to connecting. And I would just second what you said about young people they're actually asking for this. You know, DC Action interviewed quite a few young people over the past year, and many of them said that their peers often get involved in risky behaviors and things because they have nowhere else to go. Yeah. Like, and if they just had a safe space, a mentor, a positive place to be, then they say that there would be a lot less crime and things like that we're seeing. So this is absolutely one of the keys that is missing from that conversation. So thanks for your support.
Thank you. Thank you. Representative Henderson?
Thank you all for being here. Ms. Danelko, you anticipated one of my questions in your response to Representative Best about coordination across agencies. So clearly we have the public libraries and DPR are trying to do programming also. And so I do hope that that can be better coordinated and that all the agencies that are involved will do better at assessing like what there is demand for. So I definitely think we should be doing the focus groups, the surveys, and so on. I wonder also if there is some indication of like what current programs consistently max out in participation versus those that don't. Do you have any impression on?
I don't have like specific programs, but I do know that there are a lot of programs that have wait lists, and that, you know, we have the DC OST coalition at DC Action, and so we have a group of providers that I think would be able to help us get more information on like what programs have wait lists, at what schools, to help sort of hone in on where the greatest demand is and what programs are in demand.
When OSSI funds out of school time programs, do they do their own quality assessment, or does the DME office do that?
So for the OSSI funding, it's a little different than the DME funding because it's actually the federal 21st Century Community Learning Centers program that they are just administering. And so the Department of Education standards are what kind of govern the quality and assessment of the OSSI programs. So they do have, I would say, a pretty robust and high standards for their programming.
Is it comparable to what the DME's office does?
Yeah, I would say so. And they have a lot more. They have a lot more of an academic focus, as far as I know, and the biggest recipient of the OSSI funding is actually DCPS, because DCPS funds most of their school-sponsored after-school programs through the OSSI 21st Century Grant.
All right, thank you. Ms. Loring, I do hope that you will take a look at the new or the proposed financial literacy standards and give your input, because we would really appreciate that. And thank you, students, for your testimony.
Thank you. Representative Reed?
Good evening. Thanks to the students again. Ms. Lorden, your comments definitely have me thinking about of course, the standards, but the implementation, the resources, and something that, speaking to the educators who were on the panel in between the sessions, we're mentioning of like coaches. Like we already have literacy coaches and math coaches. Like what about a financial literacy coach for both teachers and for students? Because sometimes you have to see it. Like I needed to see and try and to believe some of the financial strategies, and I'm still need to see, try, and believe. So thank you for your comments. Sorry, I have your name somewhere on here. Out of school time, my bad. Oh, Miss Danelko? Miss Danelko, thank you. I would, if you could email me so we could set up some time to chat for two things. And that helps me, it'll help me remember to actually follow up. So a couple of things I'm curious about, and I'm kind of flipped through your report here about before school. I've had parents ask about before school time. Actually, a grandparent who's connected to PAVE was questioning or asking about that. And then it seems to be some impact with the voucher program. This grandparent was mentioning she went to, the grandchildren go to school outside of Ward 8, and because of how out of school time is implemented at the school that they choose, although the out of school time provider is offering a discount, that discount still adds up to the point that even I think there's just a gap a little bit. So I want to follow what you just kind of talk through to see like where the connections are to your report, and then are there things that maybe that story, that piece of engagement with the parent might need to land in this. And then as we're also looking, I know Rep. Goulet is interested in working on out of school time, possibly a resolution, so it'll kind of help guide some of the thoughts related to that as follow-up. I think that's it. Sorry, it was more asks.
Yeah, no, I'd love to talk about all of that. So
cool. Please email me, because if it lands in email, it actually happens. So
yeah,
thank you.
I will.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Representative Chang.
Thank you very much. Students, again, thank you for coming out. Thank you for staying with us so late. And especially to co-leaders Anna and Zoe, thank you for bookending the great testimonies. And I think I speak for everyone that we're really enthusiastic about continuing the conversation. My question is for you also, Riley. I'm curious who you're, in this work so far, who the existing allies have been and who is opposed.
So I think for universal out of school time, we don't come across a lot of opponents. I think, you know, having every kid be able to participate in an after school and a summer program is not necessarily a controversial thing, but I think once we would start working on actually implementing that, things might get a little different. But so far, everyone that we've kind of raised this with has been pretty supportive.
Which, for me, raises some broader questions that I think are also relevant for the students. In the question that the student representative asked around where the funding would come from, I think often we think about funding as coming from, pulling from different pieces of the education pie. And I actually think that we need help broadly as a coalition across all of the themes that have been discussed tonight, to think about how we actually work together as a city to prioritize education broadly together and make sure that we are funding education more properly to be able to open up opportunities to do the work that you're naming, and also to support the work that the students are naming as well. Thank you.
Vice President O'Leary.
I don't have a lot. I think I've already said it. I want financial literacy courses quickly, and you know how I feel about your cause, our cause. I do have a question for Ms. Mendelson, because my daughter's a veterinarian, and she always wanted to work with animals since she was like 8 years old. So I would encourage you to follow your passion. That's what I got.
President Thompson.
I want to thank everyone for their testimony this evening. I don't think I have questions, because it makes sense. Like these are pretty self-explanatory things at this point. I will say, somebody said, I'm getting sleepy, but somebody said that there are multiple streams for out of school time funding. I can attest to that. I used to run an out of school time program, which had 21st century funding and private funding, and actually individual sponsorships as well. And so I appreciate Representative Goulet's point about we funded pre-K for all during a recession, and it's a question of what you prioritize. And when I have been asked, like, how do people get into schools for out of school time programs in my ward and Ward 7, I tell them there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, because I've also seen that question of, like, how do the programs get in? be a barrier. Sometimes people have really good programming and are having a really good time navigating that. And I don't know if, and maybe this is a question, I don't know if DC Action has any thoughts on like what it looks like to help and support providers when they are trying to fill a gap in communities that don't have the same quality of programming.
Yeah, I think that a lot of that goes back to the coordination among agencies and like LEAs too, because a lot of parents, most parents actually find out about their OST programs that their children participate in through their child's school, is what one recent survey found. So, but a lot of times programs aren't able to have like a strong relationship with even the school that they're serving or the school in the neighborhood where they serve. So if we were able to build, a better information sharing system, strengthen those relationships between agencies, including LEAs, and also just improve the information resources that are available online for parents and youth to know what programs are even out there in their neighborhood. Did that answer your question?
I think so. I think that's helpful, and happy to talk more about it. I want to thank this panel again. I look forward to your comments on the financial literacy. I haven't read them yet because they're new, so I'll be digging in. So hopefully you'll be digging in along with us because I really appreciated some of your points, and we look forward to continue working with the students, and I guess we will also see you all next month. So thank you. That concludes this panel.
Yes, thank you all so much. We will invite our next two public witnesses, Ms. Ana Rodriguez, Burnell Holland, you can start, and after your testimony, we will have a final round of member questions.
Well, good evening, esteemed members of the State Board of Education and staff. My name is Burnell Holland. I'm a Ward 7 resident and CEO of Gilded Knight Consulting, a DC-based social impact agency. I'm here to discuss the critical importance of prioritizing the My Brother's Keeper initiative here in the District of Columbia. I believe that we are all aware of the ongoing public safety crisis that is undertaken in the District of Columbia, and we have all seen that a notable proportion of these issues have involved young people. In fact, just this Monday, we saw that the mayor issued a formal public emergency to help give the district more tools to respond to both the opioid crisis and rising youth violence. As you are all aware, this is not just a challenge or an issue for local law enforcement. It is a crisis of opportunity. It is a crisis that has uncovered many of the mental health challenges that have remained persistent, and it is a systematic indicator of many of the systemic failures in our supporting young people in our beloved city, particularly Black and Latino young men. While we've seen some encouraging data within the last 12 months, for example, rising overall graduation rates in DC published last December, we have also seen increases in issues like chronic absenteeism. We know that our educators and school leaders within various LEAs throughout the district are working incredibly hard to ensure that our young people reach their full potential, but they cannot do it alone. This is where My Brother's Keeper comes into play. This initiative, launched by former President Obama in 2014, is designed to address these very challenges. It aims to provide mentorship, support, and opportunities to young men of color, utilizing a cradle-to-career framework to help them achieve their full potential. And by prioritizing My Brother's Keeper, we can leverage a cross-sector movement that includes both the public and private sector, philanthropy, community-based organizations, local advocates, and each and every one of us to directly address disparities in education, employment, and the involvement in the criminal justice system from multiple angles. On Monday, December 4th, in partnership with Serve DC, Youth Invest Partners will host the My Brother's Keeper Local Action Summit, which was designed to convene youth, community members, policymakers, and practitioners committed to improving outcomes for boys and young men of color. Specifically, our objectives on the 4th are as follows. to hear directly from boys and young men of color regarding their concerns, hopes, and ideas for the future of the District of Columbia, to explore ideas for programming and initiatives that focus on violence prevention and the creation of safe spaces, as well as the importance of second chances for boys and young men of color, to discuss approaches that can enhance academic support programs aimed to deliver post-secondary success and culture of high expectations and achievement, and fourth, to create a safe space for honest dialogue about effective approaches to mental health and wellness. Investing in My Brother's Keeper is not just an investment in these young men, it's an investment in the District of Columbia, and I humbly request that the State Board of Education make MBKDC a priority. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. We will now begin a round of member questions, starting with our student members. Representative Kelly.
I don't have any questions, but thank you for your testimony.
Representative Villaflor.
Thank you for your testimony. I guess my one question is, like, where does this violence stem from, and what ways can we be kind of proactive about preventing it?
Sure. I don't think there's a single answer to your question. I think it's multi-layered, and that's why I think the work of My Brother's Keeper is uniquely positioned to address a lot of the violence that we're seeing. And it's not just about violence, it's about lack of opportunity and some of the other challenges that I mentioned. But approaching it from the lens of a full cradle to career spectrum, right? Where you're thinking about not just, on-time high school graduation, but you're starting at how are we ensuring that young people are entering school ready to learn, that they're reading at grade level by grade 3, that they are graduating on time from high school and have the opportunity to pursue post-secondary success and training. And not just that, but that they're growing up and living in a city that is safe and healthy, and one that has opportunities for second chances when people make some wrong decisions.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Representative Yarkin.
Hi. I'm curious if you know any positive impacts that it's already had, and if so, how could you use these to further your advocacy for the program?
Yeah, I can speak broadly. I spent some time doing My Brother's Keeper work, both during my time at DCPS, but also nationally when I was working for the Obama Foundation. And what we found is that one of the benefits of this work and the way that it's approached is that it helps, alleviate the burden from any one, component of our society feeling like it's just their job. Like, working to improve life outcomes for boys and young men of color in the District of Columbia is not just your job up here. It's not just teachers and educators who go into our buildings every day. It's the responsibility of the private sector and businesses in this community. It's responsibility of our parents and families. It's all of our responsibility. So showing that this is something that requires a cross-sector effort and a comprehensive approach is something that has really helped build momentum throughout the country. We've seen academic and safety outcomes shift in a positive way in lots of cities. Like Boston is an example that comes to mind immediately for some of the work that they did to lay strong groundwork with their MBK programming. Even more Midwestern cities like Omaha, Nebraska, which you probably don't think it's a problem, but they've had some serious issues with gun violence that were ultimately stemmed from coordinated work of programming like this. So,
thank you. Representative Best.
Thank you, Mr. Holland, for coming up here and staying until 9 o'clock to speak with us. What do you wish to accomplish with this event, and how can we best make sure that it gets the exposure that it deserves?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I think the hope is to accomplish an event where we have heard directly from young people about their ideas for what should be changed in our city. Right? I think a lot of us, especially those of us who've spent a considerable amount of time doing youth development work, it can be easy for us to say, okay, this is what should be done. Like we know what should be done. Like we've read the research, whatever. But there's often a voice that's missing from much of that dialogue. I think it's why it's so encouraging to see so many young people out here tonight sharing their perspectives about what they want to see happen in our city. And that's just something that I hope that an event like the Local Action Summit will spark. Just a reminder of the importance that, this is about, doing work to improve the District of Columbia in collaboration with young people and shifting away from a paradigm in which, adults are doing things to or on behalf of young people. So I think that's probably at the top of the list. In addition to that, it would be to reinvigorate the work of My Brother's Keeper here in the District of Columbia, which has been going on for several years, but I think lost a lot of momentum during the pandemic. And it's not perfect, but it is a vehicle that can be useful for jurisdictions like the District of Columbia to really make a dent in some of the systemic problems that we're seeing all across the country.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Representative Goulet.
I just want to thank you for your testimony tonight. That was really insightful. Are you funded right now through DBH or any of the agencies within DC at all, or?
Yeah. So the work that's currently taking place, it's had several different homes over the years. It's the sort of non-governmental backbone agency is Youth Invest Partners, and then they're working in partnership and in coordination with Serve DC. So that's the sort of district government home for the work, if you will.
What do you think we should be prioritizing as we look to the next budget? Obviously you talked about listening to youth being a priority, which I agree with 100%. Like, what are you hearing from youth right now that they're saying we need to be doing differently to either meet, their needs that they have, or to give them something that they would enjoy, to keep them out of trouble? Like, what are you hearing from youth that would help us do better?
Yeah, I don't really want to, go on record and say this is what I think should be done right here. I do. I will say I think a lot of points have been echoed earlier in testimony, but I think when you have more opportunities for safe out-of-school time programming, when you've got more opportunities for young people to pursue activities that interest them, that they have a say in curating.
Yep.
Right, and I think that is a big part of where we need to head as a city. But I'm also really, really eager to not just hear what young people have to say on the 4th, but I would say as a follow-up to Representative Best's question, one thing I would add to that too is, in terms of what we hope to accomplish, is that this really is not a, the event on December 4th is not a destination, right? I consider it a launch pad, whereas, it's an opportunity to remind people that, yeah, some things are not going very well, but there's also a lot of promise. There's a lot of hope. There's a lot of talent. There's a lot of vision that exists within our young people that we've got to be way more intentional about highlighting.
Thank you so much. I have no further questions, but thank you for the great work you do, and look forward to working with you on the out-of-school time resolution as we move forward with that.
Thank you.
Representative Henderson.
Thank you for your work. And I wanted to follow up on the out-of-school time, and maybe this would be premature for you to speak to, but we were talking a bit about like where interest might lie. Do you have any insight on that based on the youth that you work with, or might you be able to help us kind of hear from them on those issues?
On out-of-school time opportunities?
Yeah, like what programming would be of interest?
Yeah, I mean, I would, I think that's why, partnership with the State Board of Ed is important to us, because I think when you have not just the Mayor's Office on Volunteerism, and you have local foundations, and you have schools and administrators asking those questions, but you're having, legislative bodies and elected officials ask those questions to young people, and they're in a position to act on them and actually create formal responses to it, I think that's when we're going to see, real momentum. So, I think that there's a lot of good that can come from this work being amplified and lifted up by individuals like you asking that question in multiple venues and from multiple platforms.
Yeah, thank you. I hope we can connect some of those dots.
For
Thanks.
sure.
Representative Reed.
Thanks for coming. No questions.
Representative Williams.
Yeah, I want to thank you for coming as well and for the work that you do. I'm a big supporter of My Brother's Keeper. I grew up in Ohio, so I have a lot of people in Central Ohio who have done great work with it as well, and appreciate you thinking of ways that we can collaborate in the future.
Representative Chang.
Thank you for coming out, repeating what folks said. I appreciate you staying late also. My question to you is around looking at other case studies. Who's doing well?
I would have to put the two cities I mentioned earlier at the top of the list. I would also add, City of Chicago has done some good work to build a solid infrastructure around their My Brother's Keeper work. I would also, on that list, Yonkers, New York, has done a phenomenal job creating alignment between the public school system and having alignment between the nonprofit sector, the superintendent of public schools, the mayor's office, and local philanthropy in that city to really shift not just education outcomes, but even reforming their criminal justice operation in a lot of ways. So.
And with that case, let's say with New York, when you think about how we see the success and how we would measure that, where does your how do we think about measuring success?
Yeah, I mean, I think every jurisdiction is a bit different because, again, there's 6 major milestones of My Brother's Keeper across the Cradle to Grave framework. Each jurisdiction chooses which ones they will double down on, right? And I think here in the District of Columbia, with MBK-DC, at least with the collaborative action network that Youth Invest Partners has convened, the emphasis is really on focusing on the milestones 4, 5, and 6, which are on-time high school graduation, pursuit of post-secondary success and training, and then the promotion of healthy and safe communities, which is why you're hearing, me emphasize rhetoric around the public safety issues that we're having, but also making sure that we're thinking about economic opportunity and how that plays into some of the challenges that we're having with the wealth gap that is really persistent here in our city. That I think has played out in some really unhealthy ways. So.
And have you interacted with students from the Sunrise Movement in other jurisdictions?
No, I haven't.
Thank you.
Vice President O'Leary.
This is going to sound like a plant. Do you have any events coming up anytime soon, and could you please explain them?
Yes, sir. We absolutely have an event coming up on Monday, December 4th at the MLK Library. It'll be from 10 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. The doors open at 9:30, and that event will include opportunities to hear directly from leaders, youth leaders, and youth development practitioners that have been in the space. Hearing direct testimony, we'll have an opportunity to review data to the state of boys and young men of color in the district, and think through some live polling on what should be done. We will have multiple breakout workshops that would include ones related to career visioning and post-secondary success approaches. as well as mindfulness and sessions that focus on mental health with, in addition to Advocacy 101. We're working, I was excited to see someone from DC Action earlier testify. They've been a part of the working group that's been planning this effort, and there'll be a session on helping the young people in attendance learn some of the skills that we've seen on display tonight, right? How do you, approach your elected leaders to tell them what you want to see and, utilize the mechanisms of government to really drive change and to be the leader in that, not, something that others have dictated for you. So, and then we'll also hear directly from community leaders like Tony Lewis Jr. and what the power of second chances means in a city like DC, and what that journey looks like when people make some wrong choices, but there's a pathway toward redemption and ensuring that we don't give up on people in our city.
Has all that information been disseminated to all the schools in the city?
We've sent correspondence to each of the DCPS principals and schools, but we could use help continuing to push the message. There's also some partners that we have, again, in our collaborative action network. We're reaching out to KIP DC and have had correspondence with their team and Friendship, and so there's a couple LEAs that we've connected with, but we could certainly use the help.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
President Thompson.
Good evening. Thank you for hanging in there with us, neighbor.
Of course.
I think, so I appreciate not just you hanging in there with us on the school night, but I appreciate your commitment to kind of re-energizing this work, because I know you have been attached to it in many shapes and forms over the years. And I'm happy to see it has a new home that is not in the medical examiner's office, because that was a home for this work at one point in time. And so you have my support in continuing the energy, and we look forward to partnering with you. I can say that because we took a vote. So that is not premature to say, but I definitely appreciate you coming before us and sharing. And it sounds like we will see you on December 4th.
Yes, ma'am. And thank you to each and every one of you for the work that you do every single day and for your commitment to the District of Columbia. So much respect.
Well, thank you, Mr. Holland, for your testimony tonight, and thank you to all of our public witnesses for your testimony. At this time, I'll turn our meeting back over to our president.
All right. I want to thank all of our public witnesses for their time and attention this evening. We appreciate it. We have now a couple administrative votes. Yes, we still have a quorum, so on a school night, so that's good. At this time, we will move on to vote on one state resolution and one ceremonial resolution and our meeting calendar for 2024. We're starting with the state resolution. I'm going to look for a motion in a second for the resolution, followed by Director Butler reading the resolution into the record. Once the resolution is read into the record, we will have member discussion in 3-minute rounds before we call roll call votes. We will now move to vote on State Resolution SR 23-12, approving fiscal year 2025 need for appropriations and enhancements. Is there a motion?
So moved.
All right. Thank you, Vice President O'Leary. I am looking for a second. All right, second. Thank you, Representative Best. The motion has been properly moved by Vice President O'Leary and seconded by Representative Best. Director Butler will do her favorite thing to do, which is reading the resolution into the record.
State Board of Education resolution approving fiscal year 2025 need for appropriations and enhancements, SR 23-12. Whereas in 2013, the Council of the District of Columbia approved the State Board of Education Personnel Authority Amendment Act of 2012, effective April 27, 2013, to ensure that the D.C. State Board of Education had the authority to operate as an independent agency, including hiring its own staff and preparing its own budget. Whereas the D.C. Official Code requires the State Board to prepare and to submit to the mayor annual estimates of expenditures and appropriations essential to board operations for the following year, which the mayor includes in her wider annual budget prepared for and submitted to the D.C. Council. Whereas the State Board staff have prepared budget reflecting the need for appropriations to meet the priorities in fiscal year 2025 of the agency's 3 offices: the D.C. State Board of Education, the Office of the Ombudsman for Public Education, and the Office of the Student Advocate. Whereas the proposed fiscal year 2025 budget and related enhancements have been discussed at working sessions of the State Board on August 2nd, 2023 and September 6th, 2023. Whereas the State Board appreciates the trust placed in it by its residents and shall remain open and transparent about its spending. Whereas whereas in the fiscal year that begins on October 1st, 2024, the State Board proposes a need for appropriations of $2,955,967, with $352,656.47 spent on program activities and the remainder on personnel costs. Whereas the State Board proposes $1,099,541 in additional appropriations for the agency in the form of enhancement requests outlined in the attached table, and confirms that these requests would amplify and extend the capabilities of the agency. Now, therefore, be it resolved that on November 15, 2023, the State Board approves its fiscal year 2025 need for appropriations and enhancement requests, and requests that the mayor include in her annual budget submission the estimate approved herein.
Okay, thank you, Director Butler. Is there any discussion on the resolution? I'm seeing head nods. No, we're slowing down. Fair enough. I want to, again, I've said it before, but I think it's really important to say it again. I want to thank the staff for all their work in making sure we get our budget documents in. I want to thank the members for their patience, flexibility, and understanding to allow us to get to this point to vote on the resolution. I hope we never, ever have this experience again. Yes, and so I'm glad we're finally able to vote this evening, and I want to thank you all for all you did to be steadfast in making this happen. Seeing no further discussion, the motion is to adopt SR 23-12. Director Butler will call the roll.
Representative Yarkin.
Present.
Representative Williams.
In favor.
Representative Chang.
Aye.
Representative Goulet.
Aye.
Representative Henderson.
Aye.
Representative Best.
Aye.
Representative Reed.
Aye.
Vice President O'Leary.
Aye.
President Thompson.
Aye.
SR 23-12 has passed.
Thank you, members. The State Board will now move to adopt, well, we have one thing, so I don't know if we need it as a consent agenda. I think we can just vote on the resolution because if we remove one item, we will have no consent agenda. All right, so I'm going to ask, is there a motion to vote on, I believe it is CR 23-14?
So moved.
All right, thank you, Representative Williams. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, thank you, Representative Henderson. Having been properly moved and seconded, the motion is now open for discussion. Is there any discussion on the resolution?
So if after we vote, there's no discussion, correct? All right. So
Correct.
yeah, I just want to briefly say that I stand in full support of this, and I'm glad that we have taken this on. Beth teaches in Ward 1, but also I've known her in a personal capacity through various social studies teaching events for the last 5 to 10 years. And Beth, I just have not met as many people that are as student-centered and selfless about this work. And the level of sacrifice that you put in and the empathy that you're able to give students every day truly amazes me. So I'm really honored that we're able to do this in recognizing you for this incredible achievement.
Any further discussion? Yes? Yes.
I'll just say thank you to Beth Barkley for your teaching.
Awesome.
I was privileged to work with Beth Barkley in my last couple of years at Cardozo and have followed her career since I left. And she deserves every accolade. She's loved and respected and a fabulous teacher.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, the motion is on adopting CR 23-14. All in favor? We do all in, well, it says all in favor here. Yeah, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? All right, no Grinches at this table. Please, oh yes, I know. Please join me in congratulating Beth Barkley on being the Teacher of the Year. She is here with us in attendance. So Beth, you have made it very easy for us. We actually have a framed resolution for you for this evening. So thank you for joining us. And we will make sure to get that to you not too late on a school night. All right. Our next vote will be to set the schedule for 2024. The State Board does its best to ensure that the public is aware of upcoming meetings as early as possible. We provide this courtesy for the entire calendar year by setting our schedule now. Once approved, the schedule will be posted on the DC Register and on our website at sboe.dc.gov. Is there a motion to approve the proposed 2024 schedule of meetings?
So moved.
Thank you. Was that Representative Williams? Is there a second?
Second.
That sounds like Representative Henderson. All right, being properly moved and seconded, is there any discussion? One, yes.
Just pointing out, what is it? June 19th is Juneteenth for that public meeting, so we can accommodate, and I believe DC also recognizes. And then just wondering if the July 3rd, the working session before then, before the 4th of July, if that's realistic for quorum purposes, even though I don't have any plans, but just want to think about the board. That was it. So Juneteenth and the Wednesday before 4th of July.
It's open for discussion.
Yeah, I feel like it would be pretty awkward to have a public meeting on Juneteenth. But it is a federal holiday, and we honor it in DC. So why are we planning on having a meeting that day?
It was an oversight.
Gotcha.
We're not
Yeah.
planning on having a meeting because we will not be working.
Okay. And then I also second what Representative Reed said about maybe considering the following week in July. Just given that I don't know what my plans will be just yet, but it could be, it's a weekend that some people like to travel. So if we could move that back a week, that makes sense to me.
Okay. I think the question, I think the question I have is, While it absolutely seems like we cannot have a meeting on Juneteenth, which I'm assuming was an oversight, we would need to move the meeting to a different day. So if we move it back a week, what does that mean I will say we did have a meeting on July 5th for the working session. And I remember asking everybody, y'all going to be here or not? And people were here. So we can adjust, but I just want us to think about where we should adjust, but I want us to think about where we adjust to.
I proposed the June 12th for the June 19th meeting in replacement, since we've done that before, where we'll have public or working session on the 5th and then the public meeting on the 12th. And then, yeah, we'll be done for the rest of the month.
What is the proposal?
To move it up a week, right? Yes.
We'd also speak, you moved an amendment. I'll speak in support of your amendment.
Oh, we're still in discussion.
Oh, okay. I support not having it on Juneteenth. Either the 12th or the 26th would be fine.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like we have a plan for Juneteenth. We do not have to make a decision about the July 3rd at this moment if we want to revisit that later, if that's okay with people. But I definitely think we should tackle the Juneteenth if people are okay with it.
Okay.
All right. Now, we would need essentially a motion to amend.
I move that we amend the, meeting calendar to having the June 2024 meeting to be held on June 12th, 2024.
All right. Is there a second? I'll second it. Let's keep it moving.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, that's been properly moved and seconded. We need to have a vote. All in favor, I believe we can just do a voice vote. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Any opposed? All right. Sounds like we are in good shape for that. New business.
Do you need to move the calendar?
Oh, I'm sorry, because I'm tired. All right, now, we are going to now vote on the amended calendar for the schedule for 2024. All in favor of adopting the calendar schedule for 2024, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, perfect. Motion carries. Now, we can move on to new business. Members, are there any announcements or comments you would like to make before we adjourn at 9:32 p.m.? No pressure. All right, hearing and seeing none, I would like to thank all of the members for the time and engagement tonight. I want to thank all of you all who stuck in there with us on a school night. As a reminder to our viewing public, the State Board will continue to hold its meetings in person. We will next convene at our December 6th working session and December 13th public meeting. The December public meeting is being held 1 week early due to the holidays. With no further business, before the State Board, I would now entertain and welcome a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Perfect. Is there a second? All right. All those in favor of adjournment? Aye. Any opposed? Aye. You will be here by yourself. It sounds like the State Board is adjourned at 9:33 p.m. Thank you.